We are here and we are live. Guess who we have today? Brian. Brian's Tech Therapy. He's
What's up, guys?
here to help us all. Welcome to Stop the FOMO. FOMO here and Brian there. So today we're going to talk about a few things, right, Brian? We're going to wrap up the year. The end of the TV review season is official. With the end of the shootout last month or earlier this month, and then the sales are starting and you guys are ready to commit. You've been saving up all year. And I know many people have changed their minds over the course of the year. First it was, oh, I'm going to get the S95C. Then, oh, it's the G3. Then, wait a minute, what about the 77-inch S90C? And then you got this 100-inch U8K. And then you got the Sony A95L. So today we're going to hit all of that. But before we jump in, let's say a big hello to everyone that's here. Thanks everyone for coming by. We got Scott here, MM, Broken Wrench, Money Cujo, Michael Wyckoffs, Nigel is here. I mean, the whole gang is here. The only Simon is here. And Leaves and hi, New Daniel, Radek, of course, Elrod, and many more will join us. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Brandon, hello, hello. David Weiland, have you bought your G2, G3, G4? I love it. So now before we jump in, I wanted to share with you this poll. So I put up this poll yesterday. We got over 2,000 votes, about 2,400 people voted. And I asked, okay, Dream TV, rank your Dream TV of 2023 if you had the money to spend. And maybe no surprise, the king of TV, Sony A95L, 60%. Then I'd say second place is the G3, which I'm still a little surprised, right? They still rank that pretty highly. And then tied is the 100-inch U8K with a 77-inch S90C. And I know a few people ask, wait, where's the S95C? I put out the 77-inch S90C because I consider it essentially the same as the S95C at 77 inches, but you're saving a whole lot of money. So I thought this is a really good way to put it out there. And I even posted that, hey, if you want to vote S95C, just give your vote to the S90C. But anyway, Brian, what are your thoughts about this? And what do you think? Is this reflecting what you're expecting from your community?
Yeah, pretty much. We had this happen last year where the G2 was the hot TV, and then the S95B blew it off the map. And then by the time the year finished, the C2 became the most recommended TV for being close enough to the G2, being a much better value. So the year starting out is always so different from how it begins. And same thing we're seeing this year. But last year, as FOMO gets his audio situated, is my audio good, everybody?
No, your audio is good. I think my echo cancellation is causing me cut out, so I'm gonna put on my headphones. But
Okay.
continue talking, my friend.
But same thing as last year, guys. You know, we did the C2, G2, less G2 because the C2 was close enough. And then all of a sudden, it was like, hey, the C2 is the recommended one. And if you followed us throughout the year, people were very confused because FOMO, they tune into our first video and say, wait a minute, you said the S95B was the end-all be-all. And that's why I think what we do all year long is cover these TVs throughout and then do wrap-ups like this. And then you find out what we recommend the most of all the TVs reviewed.
Getty's like, oh wait, you're good now. And I'm like,
He's like, oh, it's me, my bad. He's like, oh, my bad.
It's like the whole Lisa thing all over again.
They lost me for a second.
Okay. And
All right.
let's get to the deals and the sales. And before we get any further, what's important for everyone to know is when I say early Black Friday deals, so if you guys saw my video, right, and I think I'm not the only one that suspects this, the deals you're seeing right now, these definitely are Black Friday level deals. If it gets any lower, it would be a flash sale that's maybe 6 hours or whatever. So in my last video, I put out very optimistic deals that would be flash sales. But the current deals you see now, this is it. So on Black Friday, I bet you the deals will stay the same. And then maybe briefly, it'll say like, oh, S90C, $19.99 or $20.99, depending on your retailer, right? But it'll be like 6 hours, inventory sold out, then it goes back up to $23.99 or whatever. And that would apply to everything. Now, here's the unfortunate part. And many LG fans, right? How come the LG prices aren't moving? Should it get better on Black Friday? Because a lot of people with the LG, they want to get an LG. And they're noticing the prices have literally stayed the same with the occasional $100 off since Prime Day. And they're asking me, so is Black Friday going to be better? And honestly, if it gets better, it's $100. So this is what my recommendation is. If you are buying from Best Buy anyway, right? You're a Best Buy Total member or a Plus member, you have a 60-day return period. During that 60 days, if Best Buy drops the price and you catch it either on a flash sale or it's one of those Black Friday deals that maybe lasts 1 or 2 days, call Best Buy and say, hey, I got this TV within 60 days, give me my price adjustment, and boom, you got it. So for those of you, whether it's LG, Sony, Samsung, and you're planning to buy from Best Buy anyway, go for it. Just boom, you're done. Because you have 60 days, as long as you're a Plus member or a Total Tech or a Total member. I think Plus membership is like $49 a year. Totally worth it if you're going to save several $100s. And Total member is a little bit more, but it includes the 2-year Apple Care warranty if you get Apple products. I mean, there's a few other things. I have the Total membership because I buy so much from the Best Buy. Just got so much there. But Brian, what are your thoughts on these deals? Like, have you seen, or are you expecting better deals?
I mean, I am. Quickly, what you said about buying from Best Buy is if you're in the return window and that price drops, you're protected. They'll actually adjust it. If you recontact them, they'll give you back the difference. So if you think something's going to go down at Black Friday, buy right now if it's at a sale. If it does drop $100, bring your receipt back in, and because what you could do is bring it back. They don't want you to do that. They'll just price adjust you. Any of the major retailers will do that. Even Value Electronics will do that, actually.
Right.
But back to what you were saying about the price drops, where I see the massive drops, FOMO, are the TVs that are on the floor. What I mean by that is that lower tier, that when you walk in, those Fire TVs, those are the ones you'll see at Best Buy littering the floor. Those are your real Black Friday deals. LG's prices actually just went up. So the way they did it is it was already cheaper than the A95L, but picture this. It was already cheaper than the A95L. A95L drops. LG raises their price, even a few $100s. Think about the money they make per unit now. So it's interesting. Then they'll drop again at Black Friday, and then sound like they're making a big sale. So it's very interesting. Yeah, but my thing, FOMO, as we've talked, is everything's on a sale compared to launch, other than the A95L. If you really want something, think to yourself, is $100 worth a few months saving? Where you could be enjoying that TV for a few months. So if you're on the fence on what to buy, I understand waiting. But right now, I think probably FOMO, it is the time to buy.
Yeah. And
if you know what you want.
And we have a super chat from Getty G Man, a regular. Thank you, Getty. I'm torn between the 83-inch S90C, the 77-inch A95L, and the 100-inch U8K. So let's talk about the 83-inch S90C. That's essentially a WOLED. So the question is, Getty, why 83-inch S90C and not the 83-inch C3 or the 83-inch A80L? Now, the A80L is a little bit more expensive, so I understand. Let's put that out of the way. But the C3 right now, I believe, let's just put this real quick. Maybe we'll be surprised. So LG C3 right now is $39.99, which is silly considering last year's is $39.99. Like, why not get this one, right?
Yeah, like, wait a second, don't buy the wrong one. Don't let you do that, by the way. I think the C2.
Samsung S90C 83 is also $39.99, right? And so the question is, like, why LG and not Samsung? Or why Samsung, not LG? I would choose LG because LG's been doing this longer, WOLED technology. Remember, this is not QD-OLED, everybody. The 83-inch size S90C is LG's same panel that's being used on these two TVs right here. So yeah, give us some detail on that, and let me catch a few more. What are your thoughts on Getty's question? Oh, and okay, so let's put that aside. 77-inch is slightly smaller, and the 100-inch is a bit larger. Yeah. If you're coming from an OLED, Getty, I don't know if you can live with a 100-inch. I mean, it's larger, but you'll notice that infinite contrast issue. So if you're coming from an OLED, I'd say go with the 77-inch A95L because that's a huge jump from OLED to OLED. So if you're coming from an OLED, let's say the C8, C9, C10, going to A95L, boom. you will see that difference. If you're coming from an LCD TV, I'd say go with a 100-inch U8K because you don't know what you're missing. You haven't seen infinite contrast. But the U8K is $5,000, right? So that's a bit more. So what are your thoughts on this, Brian?
I thought that was a great comment, and we said this off camera, is that if you're with an LED already, go with a larger, more modern LED, and you'll see the difference. But what FOMO was saying I love is that the infinite contrast and micro contrast from an OLED to an LED, especially at a large size, will always appear washed out, no matter how good that mini LED is. And it may appear too soft depending on what size you're coming from. If you're coming from a 55 or 65, I would never recommend jumping to anything over 80, 83 or 85. What FOMO and I also said is I think the Samsung S90C at 83 is a missed opportunity. They haven't marketed it in a way. I don't care that it's a WRGB OLED, but FOMO, if it has 144 hertz, or if it has a game bar, if it has all that, which I don't know, I've never seen it, I then can recommend it. However, I'd rather see you go with an XR Clear A80L over the C or the Samsung. Again, it depends on your use case, but it's hard for me to have you jump to a U8K if I don't know what you're coming from.
And here's a question that is directly targeted towards you as well, Brian, because we both have had the X90L. You actually gamed on it. I haven't had a chance to even game on it yet. Hi New Daniel asks, X95L, is it going to get cheaper than it is now? Should we try to get it now? So I think this is a phenomenal TV, by the way. I mean, I would put this up against the U8K and the QM8 because of its processing. I don't think the prices are going to be much lower than $11.99. So again, depending on your retailer, if you get it at Amazon, you might be stuck with the price. But if it does get cheaper, I'd say $100 cheaper, maybe $10.99. I don't see it going to $9.99. I mean, I see it getting close, but Sony is going to be resistant to get it that low. I say get it now. At worst, you're paying $100 more, but it's a great TV. Your thoughts, Brian?
Same thought. I mean, we know with the X90L, the disadvantage was releasing at a high price point. They always do this with the X90K, but it's been out for quite a while now. I think it's stable where it is. Also, they don't have any competition in their own lineup to really counteract it. They don't have a 55-inch X93, so they're not really encouraged to drop it. There's only one 55-inch in the mini LED lineup, or I should say in the LED lineup. It's not mini LED. I think you'll be very happy with it. It's the entry-level XR Clear. It's very, very good, especially if you want a larger one, FOMO, which you've alluded to. You think the 100-inch is something to look at. So I think it's a great jump-off point. Will it drop a little bit? Minor. Again, wherever you buy it, if you buy it with the big return window, they'll compensate you for the price difference. But if you really want it, I would grab it.
And to AJ's point, are Black Friday deals better than January sales? No, by the way, January sales are not going to be better than Black Friday. It's either going to be around Black Friday. January will get rid of the 2022 models. They want to clear that out. So that's a 2-year-old TV now. The next big jump will be once they announce 2024 models. So after CES, right, Samsung will drop their 2023 models before they release their 2024. So if you're looking at a Samsung, the next big jump will be after CES for Samsung. And then LG, once they announce their 2024 models, they launch it in 2024. Then the LGs will start dropping. And then Sony is the most resistant to drops. It won't be until close to early summer before the 2023 Sony start dropping. So January is great to get rid of large, cheap TVs from 2022. What do they call the Super Bowl? Football,
yeah, Super Bowl is definitely the large TV
right?
one. Yep.
They'll get rid of the large, but there'll be cheap large TVs. We're talking the CU7000, the CU8000, Crystal series,
80.
right? The X97L. If you're
LGs.
looking at, the LG's QNED maybe if it's still out there somewhere. So January sales are where they get rid of their TVs that you guys would probably not buy. And here's a question for you, Brian. Hey guys, question for Brian. I'm on TV number 37. I'm assuming that's why he has a lot of TVs.
37. Damn, you got me beat.
I've been trying to buy a new TV for about 2 years, starting with the QM8 then the C10 till these days. S95C had issues. All TVs had issues, died or unwatchable issues. So What should I do? I've lost so much money and time. So, Brian, this is your walk of
Yeah.
shame story. What should he do? Now,
Yeah.
this is not the same as it was years ago. Like Best Buy is different now. What do you recommend
Yeah.
for two-channel OP?
I mean, 37 TVs is a lot of, and if that's what you're meaning, I went through, I think, 13 or 14 of them altogether. It's brutal. It's terrible. To me, the S90C in that group in the middle without the One Connect box is a safe bet, as long as you're not in direct sunlight where it does suffer. I like the S90C. I got to know your budget to really know what you're looking for in your use case. So if you want to pop that question in of what your budget and use case is, I'll absolutely help you. But we need to know that.
And
So
speaking
just
of
put that in.
speaking of use case, so Getty G Man comes back and says, "I'm coming from an LCD TV." Now, the 100-inch
We,
U8K
we
opens
just
up.
made it worse. You know what you need is an OLED, baby.
So
like,
here's
"Wait a
what,
second."
so actually it's a diverging pathway, right, Brian? If he goes OLED, he can never go back, right? You cannot
What's
go
so?
with a
Fomo,
non-OLED.
ask him what size. G-Man,
Yeah, what size? What size?
See,
And
now
can you fit a
we're gonna keep
100 inch?
G-Man.
Because
You're gonna
either way
star
you,
in this one. You're gonna star in this one.
either way you can't go back. If you go OLED, you got to stick with OLED for all your updates. If you go big, like a 100-inch, you are not going to go back even to an 85-inch, right? The 85-inch you'll feel like, this feels like a monitor. So
Yeah.
either way you go, you can't go back. You can only go forward. So with a 100-inch, the good news is the 100-inch improvements will be subtle unless one day the 97-inch OLED drops to under $10,000. It's currently $25,000, right? The LG G2 97-inch is about 24,000. And so that's it. That's the only way you're going. But the good news is replacing your 100-inch OLED or 100-inch LCD will be relatively inexpensive over time, right? You'll still get a 100-inch over the next 10 years or so, but it'll be progressively cheaper. If you go OLED, let's say the 77-inch A95L, well, you can only go larger. And going larger on an OLED will get more and more expensive for replacement value. So
Well,
what
and
do you
this is
think
where
Getty
you
G-Man
guys-
should do?
So this is another thing that we didn't talk about, FOMO, is that because there isn't an MLA or a QD-OLED at 83, people like me are tempted to jump to 85. The problem is when those do become available, they're only going to be 83. They're not going to be 98. So we're going to end up having to go back. I think 85 to 83 is the only acceptable go back range, but even that, it hurts. So it's an interesting jump you're making. What size did he say he was going from, FOMO? Did he follow up on size?
We don't know yet, but we'll find out soon. Yeah, so
Yeah,
let us
so I
know,
think
Getty,
that would be
what
the
size
thing.
you're coming from.
If you're coming from a 55, I think the 77 would be your ultimate. I think 55 to 100 would look terrible. I think it would be too soft for you.
And here's someone, Dave, apparently has a 98 100-inch panel. He came from an OLED, and so the increased immersion, not disappointed. And to be fair
Good.
to LCD TVs have progressed to the point where, with their blooming control, the U8K, the QM8 at 65-inch size, in a lot of content, they're very nearly indistinguishable from OLED, I have to admit. Now, in the more challenging stuff, right, we're talking 1917, certain scenes, OLED pops because of its infinite contrast, but things like Mad Max, very bombastic scenes, John Wick, in some scenes, the OLED may look better because it doesn't bloom, because it's super bright in a dark room, right? But the QM8 and the TCL and the Hisense U8K, they've come very close. So if you're watching streaming content, you may not notice the difference going from an OLED to a 100-inch, which is a big difference in size. I like the immersion, but can you go from an OLED to a larger LCD TV, Brian? Because you have an OLED at home. You have a 77-inch. Do you have an 83-inch at home?
I do have an 83. Yeah, I have them both.
Can you go
Yeah.
100-inch?
I'm both. Well, you see, the only reason why I can't go 100-inch, and this might not be something you guys can relate to. We switch TVs every 2 years. FOMO and I, most likely, maybe every year. Who am I giving that 100-inch to? Who am I selling that to? That TV
true.
better be yours, because I can't find. I'm sure you guys in the chat would say, "I'll take it." All right, well, so who's driving over to pick up a 100-inch TV? And me knowing, Max, what's up, baby? Me knowing screen uniformity issues are only going to increase at that size, I'm very apprehensive for dirty screen effect at 100 inches, especially from Samsung, TCL, and Hisense. So
Yeah,
for me, it's no bueno.
definitely no bueno.
What's
And
up,
let's grab
Max?
this, let's grab
Good to
this
see you.
quick super chat. Hey, Max, and Matt here is as well. Hey, from Ryan Gibbs, I have an 83-inch A90J. With all the talk about the A95K, would it be a true upgrade and worth the downgrade to, you mean, so I assume you mean the A95L. A95K is last year's QD-OLED. It only goes up to 65 inches. So
Yeah.
77-inch QD-OLED from Sony this year is the A95L. So is it worth it to upgrade, or is that a downgrade, right? So you're upgrading the image quality, but you're downgrading the size. This is the kind of conversation we love. I think you and I
Love it.
have both said it's not worth the size downgrade. So the image will be more vibrant, it might pop more, you might have more HDR, but you're gonna notice it's smaller. I, I can't jive with that. I say hold on to the
So,
83-inch A90J and wait until QD OLED gets to 83 inches. Now, if your A90J
yeah,
is broken, different conversation. But if it still works
absolutely.
well, just hold back the FOMO. Stop the FOMO for the QD OLED if you have an
Yeah.
83-inch OLED. Brian?
So Ryan, I can prove this to you. As I'm coming from an 83-inch C1, and I would never in a million years step down from the C1 to a 77-inch A95L. And I think the A95L is above and beyond the best TV this year. But the immersion, Fomo and I talked about this. Sitting in front of my 77-inch A80J from the same seating distance, the 83-inch just engulfs you. Um, the A95 just can't get bigger. No matter how good it is, it can't get larger, and you'll miss that size. And think about this, FOMO. When you look at not your studio, but your house, whatever you have on the walls is now visible differently when you have a smaller TV. All of a sudden, you're noticing that the sconces are farther. You're like, "What the hell?" It's got a lower profile. It will bother you.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a size guy, the 8390J is excellent. I can't suggest upgrading from it unless you're staying even same size QD OLED. The A90J is just that good. I would say no, no bueno.
So here's Getty coming back, giving us his TV and size. And this is perfect. 65-inch,
Oh,
65-inch U8H. Great TV, by the way. I think it was my editor's choice back then. The
it was.
U8K
You
is
said back
definitely,
then like it was 20 years
I
ago.
know, right? It's like two
You're
years
like in the
ago.
Wild West. Back
The
then on
way,
yonder.
way back when,
Oh,
yonder, 2020.
like six
So
months
this
ago.
the 65-inch U8H, great TV. You're familiar with Hisense and the Android TV, and now it's Google TV. And Hisense has preserved its priorities still. U8K takes it to another level in both bloom control, impact, all of that, but it's at 100 inches. You got to go with 100-inch U8K. Just because it feels like a natural progression,
Yeah.
staying with the Hisense. You're used to Hisense. I say get extended warranty at this point, though. 5,000 is a lot of money. If you're getting it at Best Buy, it's worth it to upgrade to the 2-year membership, so you have it covered for 2 years. But I'm excited for getting that. If he can roll the $5,000 to get this, but of course, not everyone wants to roll that way. Doris is like, this is where FOMO jumps the shark. 100-inch TV for everyone.
So FOMO and I did a stream. What did we do a stream on? Was it the A95L? And FOMO out of nowhere is like, you know what you gotta get? The X90L, baby. Out of nowhere. The chat is like, I thought I was, wait a minute. Yeah, you know what you gotta get? X90L, 100-inch, done.
No, we're talking OLED, king of TVs, right? And then
It's like,
suddenly, what? And
Vizio P
that's
series.
well, and so this is where thinking outside the box is so important. People forget the impact of immersion. Like, why do you go to movie theater other than the popcorn and the BO and the dirty
Yeah,
chairs, right? I know a lot of you guys need that in your life, but outside of
yeah,
that, or the vibrating four-dimensional chairs, right? The reality is the screen in a movie theater, it just sucks. It's SDR, but it's huge, right? The image quality is eh. The contrast is definitely eh. And then you have
Well,
all
now
this
we can't,
ambient
FOMO,
lights.
we can't turn the lights off, baby.
I
Gotta have
know.
the
You
freaking
got
exit
the
signs. I gotta know how to get
exits,
out of here.
lights, LCDs everywhere. I mean, ambient
Yeah,
lighting sucks, right? And
yeah,
so no matter what, you're there for the large TV experience or the large screen experience. But if you
yeah.
are at home and you're sitting 8, 9 feet away from a 100-inch TV, that is your movie theater experience, and that TV is going to blow away. And of course, if you call Matt over to calibrate it, then suddenly This is your
Yeah.
movie theater experience. And yeah, no, this is why I still like, wait, I keep on forgetting. The immersiveness of a 100-inch TV is so unique. And I'm setting up my friend's renovation right now. They're about 9 to 10 feet away from the wall. And I was like, yes, perfect. It's an excuse to get a 100-inch TV. So, hey,
Well, how about
Jessica.
this, Momo?
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. We have another female in the chat. Is
I
Lisa?
know, I
Lisa, what's up,
know.
girl? We have
Oh,
Doris's
Is
mom,
Lisa here?
Jessica.
We
Hi,
got
Jessica.
Jessica here. We got Doris's
We got
mom.
three.
Okay,
3 out of
so
253. Welcome.
my percentages are tripling in the last 30 minutes. Hey, Jessica, thank you for the super chat and thank you for waiting. Looking to buy a Z9K, using that TV, or a U8, or an LG 99. Okay, so she's looking at these very premium TVs
Z9K. You're all
and
set.
looking for a good lasting. So this is the part, reliable. I want a long lasting TV, mostly movies with some gaming on the PS5. Whew, that's Z9K, getting long in the tooth. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Z9K blows those other two away. I think you must mean the U8K. The Z9K does dismantle it. It's almost 4,000 nits. Unless you're going now, again, Jessica, if you're staying the same size with all of them, the Z9K is still better than them all. It doesn't have as good a blooming control as the X95,
Hmm.
but I think you appreciate it over the U8 and especially the LG. I cannot recommend any of the QNEDs anymore because they're just not paying attention to it. So I don't believe they'll be supporting it.
Yeah.
And the PS5, the Z9K has been updated with the new game bar, and a lot of you guys are going to be looking at the Z9K now. So easy question for me: Z9K by a mile.
And what size are you looking at? That's a good point, Brian. Is it 75-inch size or
Yeah,
U8? I'm assuming the U8K, you're looking at the 100-inch size, which is a whole different league. But you're gaming on the
99 has an
PS5 too.
86. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yep.
yeah, I would,
Yep.
but I would say Z9K, Jess. Even that one, if you want to stay with the smaller Z9K, it's that much better than the others.
Oh, here's a good one. King Dranzer, as we know, loves Sony's. And so he's debating between
Okay.
the best LCD TV, mini LED TV of this year, the Sony X95L, for movie
Mhm.
watching and streaming. We're not going to talk about gaming, but movie watching and streaming, Sony X95L, versus the Sony A80L at 83 inches, which would be a better deal. So not necessarily a better image quality, but a better deal. Price, let's say A80L, a bit more expensive X95L. I I'm an OLED guy. I think OLED gives you that better consistency across the board. And the A80L, it's hard to say it's a better deal because they're both going to be relatively expensive. They're all between 4,000. Actually, let me look at the price now. So why don't you
Yeah.
talk to King Dranzo while I look up the price real quick on that for him?
So King, I'm an LED guy, and the X95L is probably the best all-around LED this year. Um, it's just very versatile, excellent blacks. It's bright enough. It's not as bright as the Z9K. It's not as bright as the QM8 but it's bright enough. However, the XR Clear that makes the X95 so successful is much better on the A80L. So the micro contrast of the OLED enhances it. So if you want XR Clear, the A80L is going to have much better picture quality, not just because it's an OLED with infinite contrast. The XR Clear will just be that much more effective on the A80L. And I think the 83-inch A80L is the best 83-inch this year by a good margin. So I'm choosing between those two. I'm definitely going with the A80L. As much as I like the X95, it's just limited. And we saw it go against the UX, and at times, FOMO, it looked a little pale, didn't it?
Yeah.
So it just didn't have the same blacks. The UX having, 5,000 zones had better contrast ratio. I go A80L, I think. And that's really the tandem of XR Clear with an OLED more than anything.
Yeah, it's only a $200 or if that, right? So for 44.99, 42.99 at most, that's $200 difference. I think the OLED is definitely worth a $200 difference. I'd go with the A80L 83-inch as well. Now the X95L obviously will get brighter, right? The A80L, this is not a QD OLED, but you got infinite contrast, so it will feel brighter. And if you're streaming and you're gaming, the A80L will look better consistently across all content. And they both have the XR Clear. As good as the X95L is, and I know it's the best LCD TV out there, you got such a solid TV in the A80L. So that's my
Yeah.
vote. Yeah.
Well, and FOMO, the A80L has the A90J chassis. So what you're basically getting is a W OLED with the Master Series body. So you still have the binding post for the speakers in the back. You do have better audio, and you do have the heatsink. Not that it really makes any real difference. It only uses the heatsink to drive the larger panel. It's not going to be brighter, but it is a step up from the other OLEDs. And FOMO, we mentioned this. Out of all the WRGB OLEDs, the 83-inch A80L is the only one with a better feature. There's no MLA on LG. There's no
Nope.
QD-OLED on
Mm-hmm.
Samsung, but there is XR Clear on the
Yes.
83. So it makes it above and beyond any other 83.
Unless you need 4x HDMI 2.1. That would be the only reason to get the C3, right? I mean, if you need the 4 ports,
Yeah,
but that's it.
yeah. Which I've backed up from only because if the picture quality is better, I'll get a splitter.
Yeah.
And I'm somebody that
Yeah.
really thinks they
I
should
agree.
have 4 HDMIs, but if the picture quality is better, I would definitely get it. And then the XR Clear, what's great about your question is the XR Clear and the X95 is excellent, but it's that much better with infinite contrast. So that's why the A95L is so detailed. Same with the A83 or the 83
And
A8 A80L.
Da- Daniel has a follow up. Is at that price point, we're talking 1100, 1200. Is there anything better than the X90L out there? So TCL and Hisense arguably have certain things that are better, but then the X90L is definitely better in upscaling, motion, and just overall rendering of streaming content. So what is it you're watching? If you're looking for maximum HDR impact from your sources, the QM8 will do that, but it's a bit inaccurate in the colors. So if that doesn't bother you, you got the QM8. It's bright, it's punchy, and it's got that amazing contrast because of the way they set it up. But its motion is going to fall a little short. The U8K has slightly better motion, I would say better upscaling, and is as bright, but it's not, the contrast isn't as good. And the Sony X90L, you could say that it has probably the worst contrast of the three, but then it makes up for it with XR Clear. So for me, I would suggest most people get the X90L, unless they're coming from something like the Q9FN, where they're used to that vibrancy. Then you might have to stick with the QM8 or and they're used to inaccurate colors,
Yep.
right? But if you're coming from an old LCD TV, then the X90L will look phenomenal, and you'll appreciate the sharpness of streaming content that's on the X90L, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and the X90L, I think we did talk about this also. If you want more of a crushed black look like the Q9FN, which was what made it so contrasty, I think the QM8 is a much better deal. The problem with the QM8 and the U8K is the processing is just not going to compete. Where I do go with the QM8 FOMO or the U8K is if you want a larger. So if you want a 65-inch X90L versus a 75-inch QM8, QM8 all day or U8K all day, but at the
Yeah.
same size. And if it's the problem is just not an X93L with XR Clear that can compete. So it's just a very interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. But X90L is very good.
And thank you for that super chat, Doris's mom. I think we're
Hey,
not seeing the
Doris's mom,
forest
how are you,
here.
my friend?
Right.
I'm
No
talking
one
over your
has
question.
the money. Okay, so we're not seeing the forest for the trees here. Let's look. I think we're not seeing the forest here. No one has the money to compete against third generation QD-OLED. So we're only in second generation. So let's talk third generation, 2024, maybe. And I agree. So if you guys look at LG Display's most recent earnings, it was disastrous as far as money is concerned. And they're like, no, it's okay. We got lenders. And you know who their lender is, right? Their number one lender is the parent company, LG Electronics. So they're borrowing money from themselves. They're hanging on. And this is why LG Display has issues. They are 100% committed to their current stack, which is MLA, WOLED. There's nothing wrong with that because they still need to make money. If they were to go into QD-OLED, the losses would be astronomical because they have to retool. They have to buy all new software. I mean, they have to redevelop everything. They have that perfect stack for WOLED right now, and it works well, right? The only thing is they need to lower their prices. The C3, the people who watch all of our videos, other than dedicated LG gamers, they know what they're getting. Everyone else, S90C or A80L or A75L, the C3, dead in the water at that price point. And then when you go up to the premium G3, it's arguably a good TV with MLA, right? So you got enough people. I mean, you saw the votes earlier. G3 is there, But then you have the S90C at 77 inches. That's so much less expensive. And the performance is so similar. And then, of course, you have the king of TVs at A95L. This is everyone's dream TV if they have the money. It gets worse next year. If there is a third generation QD-OLED that even has a slight improvement to overall APL, average picture level, right, slightly brighter. I mean, even that slight brightness. And if Samsung improves its processing on its TVs, LG will continue to fall behind. And this is the issue. The money required for LG Display and LG Electronics, it may end up doing a Vizio. Brian, do you think LG can keep up? I mean, and now we're speculating, so who knows what happens next year, right? But anything is possible.
To me, the missed opportunity for LG was the C series this year. Had they done an MLA C series, they would have counteracted the S90C. The problem is the S90C, because it has a 77 inch, where the S95B was limited for almost 55 and 65. And it also was such a maverick last year. You didn't know if it was good or bad. The S90C has been so consistent this year that it's something we recommend. So it left the C series kind of just naked. And then all this talk of the C series having perhaps not as good SDR gaming really put it in a weird place of being too expensive. The C3 is very good, by the way. But it's got that same little APL bump that the C2 had. It's more processing based, where the QD-OLED's QD-OLED. Yeah. So they really found themselves in a bad spot. And then I think not having the QNED as something to keep people interested, they really limited their scope to just two TVs. And the C is something they really rested on their laurels, unfortunately. Next year, unless they do MLA across the board, they're really going to be in a bad spot.
And speaking of G3, let's just throw in the G3. Its largest size with the MLA is definitely the 77-inch size, and currently it's $37.99, which compared to the S95C is not bad. The problem is the S90C is $2,000, and this is where it kills me to recommend the G3 with MLA. It's a great TV with a great technology, but the S90C at $2,000, they're not giving it away per se. But when the difference is $1,800, it's insane. And real quick, Brent, I think he has a great comment. I would need a 110 to 120 inch TV in the sub $5,000 range before I think about moving from projectors. And I don't see 120 inch TVs becoming a thing anytime soon. But just keep in mind, Hisense has a 110 inch UX in China. It's 8K, and it's not 5,000. I think it's closer to 9 or 10,000. But that's this year. Now that it's out there, and depending on how hard it is to make it, I suggest they take that 110 inch and make it 4K because they have the technology already. Forget the pixel density of 8K, 110 inch, 4K, drop it down to 5,000. You're going to save energy, processing, reliability. All of that is better with 4K. I think we're 2 years away from a 110 inch in the $5,000 range. I mean, we're already at a 100 inch in the 5,000 range, right? And 110 is being tested and sold right now in China, so we're definitely there. Brian, I know you're a big TV guy. Is it okay if OLEDs are not there yet? I mean, would you jump to LCDs of 110 inch? Let's just say the Sony X90L, right? Let's just say for the sake of argument, that level XR Clear quality at $5,000 at 110 inch.
I mean, again, I have a hard time with LEDs at that size with that zone count. I would rather see a larger, like a QM8 at that size to me is more attractive because of its bright and it's got the zone count. The X90L, I think, again, like we said, FOMO, it depends on what you're coming from. Brent, who already has a projector, because he's used to that contrast ratio, he's happy with that immersion. The problem, Brent, is if you go from TVs to projectors, there's no projector on the planet other than the very professional ones that can give you those blacks. We've seen the best ones in the world, and we have a hard time from RT. The minute you see those gray bars, those gray bars, those black bars gray,
right?
It's a challenge. Even in the theater, Dolby Theater, I noticed that. But I just have a hard time with these larger TVs. For me, they have to be a lot of zones, a lot of peak brightness for me to really make that jump to them. Because I think the larger, cheaper TVs with low zone counts, they just look very bland to me.
I love this comment. Amir Elmogi.
What's up, Amir?
Thank you for the super chat. I listened to your advice, guys. I sold my 55-inch S95C and got a 65-inch S95C for only $1,400 in my country. Early Black Friday offer. And $1,400. I wanted to pull this up. I mean, that's even cheaper than the 65-inch S90C. I can't go smaller now. So as we say, go larger. Now this advice is for Amir because he's got a person to sell it to and buy it for less. Most of you would tell you to hold on to it and wait, but not Amir. Congratulations, because that is a great price for sure. And early Black Friday, it's a thing. So share with us. If you guys got great deals, let us know. How'd you do it? Because there are some tricks here that, people maybe from nearby to Amir's country can take advantage of that. But that's pretty cool. Brian, would you sell a 55-inch and upgrade like this? It's pretty good.
Hell yeah. Well, I remember Amir because Amir did, he was one of the guys that started one of our live streams. Amir was like, yo, I'm new here. And he did like 3 super chats without a question, I think. And he was like, wait a second, I didn't put the comment. So Amir, look, we remember all you guys. I mean, I know you guys are saying hello. I'm not looking at the comments to say hello back. I'm just focusing on it. But we know everybody here. I remember everybody. Love all you guys. But Amir was like, hey, I'm new. What's up? Super chat. Then like 10 super chats later, we're like, Amir, chill with the super chats. We'll answer you. So I'm glad that whatever advice you got from FOMO or I worked out. And you actually made money.
Oh, man.
He's like, it's not on the back of his car. There you go. That's awesome.
Hey, Eric, thank you for the super chat. Huge thanks for the recommendations and money-saving tips for me and my parents. I got the 77-inch S90C for $19.99 plus the warranty. So, yeah. Just real quick, how Eric did it is on the Samsung website, and you see it on my community posts all the time. If you're a AAA member or if you're a teacher, EDU, you can log in through that membership. AAA, I put a link up there, and once you validated your membership, you click on the actual product link. It may show $19.99. It actually may show $23.99, right? Doesn't matter. You then go to the chat representative and you say, hey, I know you guys had this for $19.99. I just missed it. Can you give me that price? And then what Eric did, and can you throw in an extra 2 or 3 year warranty? They're like, all right, what kind of Samsung products do you have? Oh, I love Samsung. My whole world is Samsung. I got Samsung shoes. Look at my t-shirt, my cap. They're like,
FOMO, Samsung. FOMO, tell them the story about the Samsung socks.
Oh,
this is great. You guys will love this story. Just to interrupt the whole thing.
So I was at...
FOMO put QD-OLED on the map. I'll set it up. FOMO puts QD-OLED on the map, right? So we go to CES, and he is presented with a gift. And he's like, oh, my God, I definitely have an S22 here. I definitely have something that is a camera something. And what did you end up with? From
big box,
CEO? Right? Was the CEO of the company?
The president of Samsung Display personally calls in his assistant. Like, thank you for all you did. And remember, this is Samsung Display. They were fighting the battle of convincing the world to allow them to invest in QD-OLED because they were going to abandon LCDs, which is QLED. Yeah. That was their bread and butter. And they finally got the S94B out, and it snuck out. Samsung Electronics did not support it at all. You and I single-handedly, we love the S24B and then the A95K, Juan, King of TVs last year. And so it pulled up the entire team, right? The president of Samsung Display, his belief was validated by how much we, as all reviewers, loved it. And so he presents me this gift, and then he's like, thank you for respecting what we do as YouTubers. And then I open it. He has this big smile on his face. It's a collection of socks, right? And he goes, and he's all excited. Look at the logo. I look at the logo. It's the shape of our triangle pixel, the QD-OLED subpixel. I was like, man. I never would have thought. So I have Samsung socks that I wear regularly with the subpixels of each RGB QD-OLED.
When he had the box, he was like, damn, this is definitely some kind of new gimbal. You know, he's like, what is this? He's like,
it's so light. It must be the latest carbon fiber stuff.
Carbon fiber. And he was like, thanks. And no, we really appreciate that. That's awesome. But it was just so funny. I had to do that story. Go ahead.
And
we have
Eric
270
mentioned,
in the chat. I want to say,
yes, please click like, everyone. Get it out there. We have a lot to go through today. Brian's like, I'll be here all day because.
And I want to personally thank you guys for being here. You guys are, it's on a Saturday night. This is just a last minute stream for the both of us.
It
But
is.
as friends, we really appreciate you guys watching, and we do pay attention to all of you, and just as a community, I'm very proud to be part of it. I know FOMO and I are very proud of you guys and being here. So I wanted to say thank you for being
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
here.
And Eric, I wanted to mention this is, I think this is one of their best selling models though, is actually the 85-inch CU7000 for $1,000. Because a lot of people ask me, for $1,000, what are the 85-inch options? And between TCL and Hisense that have their lowest price models, I actually like the CU7000 a lot from Samsung because I think Samsung, and I'm actually surprised it's under 1,000, but that is a good price for a good crystal TV. I think it's a better value than the 8,000, the CU8000. So if you guys are not certain about Hisense or TCL for whatever reason, get the 85-inch CU7000. I've recommended it to a
Yeah.
lot of my viewers, and they all came back and says, you know what, perfect for what I need. Nothing
You think
fancy,
that's
it just works.
you think FOMO? That's got to be one of their top sellers.
Oh,
Undercover, without a
absolutely.
doubt. It has to be.
Without a doubt. I'm sure it's a Costco special too.
Yep.
Justin, thank you for the super chat. And we'll get to all of your questions and super chats eventually. So I'm trying to get through the super chats first because they've been waiting patiently. So if we don't get to your questions, keep on asking. I will see it.
Yeah.
And
Ask them. Just ask
Lisa's
them.
here. I forgot to say hi to Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you, darling?
How are you? So, Justin, I have a Samsung UN55K, 9.5 feet away. Is the A95L 65 versus 77 inch? You got to go for, I mean, assuming price is not an issue, right? Because 77 is significantly more expensive. You really have to go as large as you can because at 9.5 feet away, I would be looking at a 100-inch plus TV, right? 100, 110 inch.
FOMO, you are all about them 100.
I've jumped a shark.
Everything now. FOMO's like, what do you have? You want a gaming monitor? Yo, you gotta go 100 inch, baby. You gotta go 100 inch.
And well, let me
You
tell
never
you,
liked big TVs before.
and it was an eye-opening experience, literally eye-opening, because at the shootout, Phil Holland, Phil, thank you, he sat us in front of the 75-inch TV, and he had tape. He taped the floor, 50
Yeah, that was
degree,
eye-opening.
60 degree viewing angle, 70 degree viewing angle, and at a 60 degree viewing angle, we were close, right? And he says, okay, close your eyes before you, because if you sit close without closing your eyes, it'll feel like it's coming at you. Close your eyes, sit down. Now, open your eyes. And then you open your eyes, the TVs look normal, meaning, wow. Now, it doesn't completely fill your space, right? But it fills just enough that you're like, oh, this is not bad, actually.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, I was like, okay, I've been a bit too cheap recommending a 43 degree viewing angle, which is what's been the traditional. Phil's like, no, our current research, so Phil Holland is in Hollywood, movie studios, theaters, all that. He's a cinematographer. And he's like, right now we're seeing that all this, you're turning your head, not a problem at all. They think 50 to 60 degree viewing angle is absolutely fine, which means from 9 feet away, a 100-inch TV fits perfectly. So I'm a big fan of that now because at home I have an ultra short throw on a blank wall, 110 inches. I'm about 10 feet away. It's perfect. But seeing it on a TV, it's like, okay. So Justin, back to you. Go with the largest TV you can afford for the budget and the quality. So in this case, if the 77-inch A95L is in your budget, go for it. I think the size is so important for you, especially if you can go with a 77-inch.
Of course. Especially for you, FOMO, when you first got the A95K, FOMO was trying to explain to his family that's the best TV in the world, and it was next to a short throw. They're like, yeah, why don't you turn that thing off, please? We want you over here. Because he has a picture of them next to each other. He's like, look, turn that thing's bothering me. TV's like, hi, I'm the best in the world. Yeah, turn me off. So,
Look, he just added it to the cart. So how often has this happened during our live stream?
All right.
Where they add it to the cart, and then a couple of minutes later, where I'm showing a different image, is it too late to cancel the TV because I need Dolby Vision? It looks like crap on the live stream.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're safe.
Gonna,
I think you're safe though.
Yeah. Well, you would be the very first person of our community to buy a 100-inch online while we're here. So
yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Share with us,
Very
Getty. Let us know how it's like. It's Thanksgiving weekend. You may be watching the Thanksgiving NFL game or nice sports. Sports on this TV. your family will be like, "Oh my gosh, Giddy, you're
Yeah,
balling. What the
U8Ks.
heck?" Because most people, other than our community, don't realize there's a 100-inch TV out there. So when they get there, they'll be like, "Right, this jaw dropping, jaw dropping." I mean, I'm just so excited for you. All right, Rudolph, thank you for that super chat. Mr. Bryant asks, currently 55-inch XBR 850B. Ah, XBR. When was the last time we heard that from Sony? In a
Absolutely.
light-controlled room. Looking to upgrade. 75-inch X90L or 65-inch X93L. We talked about this off air. Or the A75L or the A80L. Okay, so just real quick. Between the 75 X90L and the X93L, I would go with the 75 X90L. Okay, I believe that the image quality on the X90L and the immersion of the 75-inch will be better than the minute specular highlight differences of the X93L, and the X93L lacks the XR Clear, which you will benefit in all content if you're streaming. But this takes us to the other one, the A80L and the A75L. So the A75L only goes up to 65 inches. If you're considering the 75-inch X90L, then I assume you're looking at a 77-inch. Unless you're going with a 77-inch A80L, we're back to size versus OLED, right? So essentially, it's a 65-inch A75L or a 75-inch X90L. So if you're coming from a TV that this is this old, a 55-inch, go big, 75-inch X90L or 77-inch A80L. But that A80L, I think, is like maybe you're paying twice as much. So I'd say if
But then he's
budget
at
is
65.
consideration, go with the X90L. What do
I
you
think
think,
it's a
Ron?
fantastic question because that size difference between 65 and 75 cannot be. I mean, the X93L I think is a better TV all around. It does not have XR Clear at the same size. I cannot recommend it. A80L is good as it is, and even the A75. If they're going to be 10 inches smaller, Rudolph, 75 is a massive jump. I mean, it really is a massive TV. I would say get with that, and with Destiny 2, you'll be fine. Especially since the PS5 and Sony are playing much better together this year, especially. So easy choice X90L.
Yeah. And again, though, if you could afford that $1,200 difference, right? So here, 1,600, and the A80L was like 28.99. If that was your budget to begin with, then get the 77-inch A80L. It'll look amazing in sports and gaming and all of that. But if you're really pushing, like, you know what, I don't know if I have that extra $1,200, which is almost twice as much, you'll be okay with the X90L, I think. Yeah.
Rudolph, go 100-inch, baby. FOMO. You know what you gotta do, baby?
90.
U8K 100-inch. Throw it in the cart.
Well, wait,
He's
wait,
like, I'm in a
wait. You
100-inch in the
know,
cart.
the X90L
Don't give him something else to
does
think about.
come in a 98-inch. Not
God, then,
just something to consider. If you have an extra 1,200 for the A80L, do you have an extra, I don't know, 7,800 for the 98-inch
yeah.
X90L? But
Get
yeah.
yourself in debt.
Oh, by the end of October, this will be dropping to around probably 8,000. You might get $2,000 off if you guys wait until Black Friday. I mean, this is MSRP, so don't get it now like these poor three saps that paid full price. Now, if they bought it within 60 days, they could get a price adjustment, but just saying.
Yeah. It's just so funny too that I just can't recommend spending that much on a TV anymore, even though I spent as much as 12 grand 3 years ago. I just can't see doing that anymore.
Just remember, the first 77-inch, was it the C7, C8?
C7, $15,000. Yeah.
$15,000 for a
Yeah.
77-inch that had
Yeah.
burn-in. I mean, C7, right? Or is it C8? So that's something to consider. Now, you can get almost 100-inch for 10 grand. Hey, Alonzo, thank you for the super chat, my friend. I mostly game and have an Xbox Series X. Which TV should I get and what size do you recommend? Alonzo, what is your budget? I recommend, wow, S90C, G3,
Yeah.
either one of those is fine. S90C 77-inch, you're going to love it. I like the S90C a lot, generally, for gaming. So 77-inch S90C. If you like the LG crowd, because they have a very specific visual image quality concern about HGIG that the G3 does very well, then the 77-inch G3, that's MLA. But those two TVs are literally your best gaming TVs. The 77-inch S90C for around $2,000, or if you want to go with the G3, that budget would be more like a 65-inch G3 with MLA. So yeah, let us know what your budget is because that probably would determine which TV you're gonna get. But Brian, no, speaking of the best TV money could buy, what would that TV be for you?
I mean, and an A95L is the best TV money can buy right
For
now.
gaming, I meant, what is the best
Oh, for gaming,
gaming
I mean,
TV money can
A95
buy? A95L.
gaming
All right.
TV, A95L. I mean,
All
it
right.
still is. I mean, what is gaming TVs now, FOMO? I mean, the 144 hertz, I don't think is something I would chase anymore.
It
Seeing the
is not
problems with
something. Yeah,
dropouts.
yeah.
So I would say the reason why I like the A95L is its image quality and XR Clear is better than everything else. And now they also have an additional 3 presets. They have FPS, RPG, and standard, so you can change the image. If I was in the market, I would still get it. You know,
Yeah.
VRR, G-Sync is nothing anymore. They all have some form of variable refresh rate now. So I would think that even Sony's back. If you have the money, I would still go with the better overall image of the A95L.
And Christopher, thank you for the super chat. Best Buy open box has the X90K 85-inch, $1,200. Good buy. Actually, if it works, I think that's a pretty good price for an 85-inch X90K. Just make sure you have a return period.
Oh, X90K. Okay.
X90K, last year's X90. I mean, it's good
Still very
enough.
good.
Yeah, $1,200. I'd say go for it. I had to put this up. You know, did you know that Lisa's bedroom is her attic? I didn't
So
know
is
that.
mine, Lisa. I have a massive, I have a 200-inch projector on my wall. So I have the same thing.
And next up, we have.
Lisa,
She's wonderful.
she's the best.
Jessica, another super chat. Wait for Black Friday to buy the Z9K or next year's 8K. Hey, if you can wait for next year's 8K. Now, Sony has not leaked if they will release an 8K next year, but if they do, it will have XR Clear. In my opinion, an 8K TV with XR Clear, now maybe 8K will look like 8K if you're upscaling 4K. Maybe. I say definitely wait. What do you think, Brian?
If you have the money, Jessica, I'd wait. But remember, the Z9 series next year will be quadruple the price of what it is right now. So you would be
Yeah.
buying the Z9K at a quarter of its price because you're buying it 2 years later. The Z9L is only in Japan. If there's a Z9M, it will be very, very, very expensive.
What do you think? Maybe
So
15 grand, 12 grand, something like that? 12, 15 grand?
at 85, it might be, but it depends. The 75 will definitely be expensive. I guess what I'm saying, Jess, is that a lot of times with TVs like Master Series, we always look at them as even the A95K. Wow, it's so expensive. But remember, you're buying it a year later. It's been greatly reduced. The A90J at 83 was $8,000. Just to put
Yeah.
it in perspective, just a couple of years ago, that TV now is what, four, FOMO?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the money, Jess, and you can wait it out, I would. I have had no indication that there will be an 8K next year. It's just not something that they brought to market this year. I can't see why they would bring one next year if they didn't bring one this year. Nothing's changed to make them need to do that.
You know, this super chat from W is something I think you've been personally weighing for yourself. So W asks, does the sharpness, we're talking the XR Clear, of the A80L outweigh the features of the S90C for gaming? I have the 77-inch S90C, but I also have the A90J, so I missed that sharpness. Swap the S90C for the
Oh,
A80L?
wow.
What a great question, Brian. And now he's talking
Wow.
about gaming, so this is great.
So W, I find that interesting because I think the A90J's game mode is pretty basic. I don't think it's something you can change much. And it looks great, don't get me wrong. But I'm interested because I think the S90C having like 6 different presets, having 144 hertz, I guess what you're asking, because the A90J shouldn't be clearer than the S90C. It does have better processing. It does not have XR Clear. So if you like, and I'm imagining that you're probably enabling reality creation with the A90J. If so, it's better, much better on the A80L. So if you like the look of the A90J, the A80L is only an improved version of it. The XR Clear and the reality creation, you can max out now on the A80L. So I would say go for it. If you're not going to miss the added presets, FOMO, those like 7 presets, I use those. But I think you seems like you're missing the processing of Sony. You're only going to get it better with the A80L. So I would make that jump.
And what is it we always say to former Sony owners? You cannot go away from Sony. You
If
will
you love them,
always
it's
stay
very
with
hard.
Sony.
And same with
Now that I
Samsung. Well,
know you have an
Samsung,
A90J, that's what happens. Sony owners cannot go to a Samsung and not go, wait, there's something wrong here.
yeah,
You're used to the
yep,
motion. You're used to the live color, all of that that makes Sony consistently a fanboy's dream, right? Sony fanboys,
yep.
they have this look they love, and they're not wrong. It is unique to Sony. It may not be accurate, but it is something that people love, and they should. It is great. So, W, you need to go to the
I
A80L.
would. Well,
Stay with Sony.
And I think we've always talked about this. If you guys are asking the question, that means you're already alluding that you're not happy.
Hmm.
So it's when someone says, "Hey, I want this, but I think it might be too small." Follow that and say, if you think it's too small already, it's not going to grow. So
Hmm.
you're already indicating you're not happy. So I would say yes. And I think we've changed our stance, FOMO, on what gaming features really matter.
Yeah, yeah,
VRR is universal now. Again, the 144 hertz thing is not something I'm chasing anymore. I think it's useless.
yep,
It doesn't really work on everything. So I would say that's a good call.
yeah, yeah. Sony fans, just consider Sony TVs, right? I mean, the closest non-Sony TV that looks like a Sony is probably outside of the USA, the Panasonic. Now, if you calibrate everything, you can get the LG and the Sonys and the Samsung to look nearly identical. But ultimately, you have these settings. Motion setting, live color, all the things that's on a Sony is unique to Sony. No one
Yeah.
else shares that. LG comes close, and Samsung is not even close. But you can get them calibrated to be
Yeah.
similar. So for
Yeah.
Sony fans, though, you got to stick with Sony. It just play it safe for sure.
Well, plus, we were talking to Rob the other day, FOMO. Sony is flexing processing now. They know they got everybody beat, so they're only going to invest more in it. So we said next year, FOMO, don't expect a brighter OLED from them. Expect them to take XR Clear another step. So they were always ahead. They got caught up to probably with the A90 FOMO. C2 was right there. Now they're clearly over everybody else. And they're going to really flex that now. So expect them to reinvest in that. And as we talked to them at dinner, remember, FOMO, they said that their processing is 30 years old. They
Yeah,
just keep adding to it. So you
yeah.
can't catch it with a TCL or a Hisense. Samsung has not ever really invested in that specifically. They want saturation and pop. So if you like Sony, they're only going to go farther with that now.
Now, Ty has a great question because I'm seeing this a lot
What's up, Ty?
because the prices are so similar. Has someone
Mhm.
done a comparison between the X95L and the
Uh-uh.
A95L by Sony? And I'll tell you this, Ty, this is something that a lot of us who are in this budget, myself, Brian, and even Classy, right? When we're at the shootout, one of the reasons we're so excited to be there was we had the X95L next to the A95L, and we could study the image quality and everything. And at the end of the day, the differences between LCD, even the best LCD, in this case X95L, and OLED, it's still not close. Yes, some content it is, right? There's some content where every TV looks alike. But when you start looking at, let's say, the 10% content, like the dark scenes of 1917 or even House of Usher, right? There are these very difficult scenes. The LCD TV, I don't care how many dimming zones it has. I don't care if it has XR Clear. The A95L with XR Clear looks just better. And so at the end, Classy was originally considering the X95L. He's like, forget it. I just got to go with OLED, even though it's slightly
Yeah.
bigger because the 77-inch A95L is only 8 inches smaller. If this is your budget, go with the A95L and then stick with OLED.
Yeah.
Don't go back. Now, if you're coming from an LCD TV, you can go with the X95L and enjoy it. But if you're curious about what OLED is, go with the A95L and you can literally say you have the best TV of 2023. What would
Yeah.
you
And
recommend, Brian?
Ty,
Because I know you
well,
like big TVs.
yeah. So Ty, if you want to wait, I'm going to try and get that comparison for you, but I will tell you it won't be in the same universe. And I'll tell you this because the A95L, more so than any of other of Sony's lineup this year, the A95L's presets are very different. So the A95L standard preset is almost like a Vivid now. So it's going to beat up the X95L in every single scene. It's actually not only, it's going to be brighter in some areas. So other than size, it won't be able to compete in any level. And even when you try to throw the X95 in standard, so here's my example. If you put an X95 in standard and then an A90J in standard, it'll beat up the A90J. not with the A95L. The A95L looks like a Samsung. When
Yeah.
you're in standard, it bleeds. It's so bright. So I think, Ty, you'll see the X95L suffer in every single preset. I don't,
Yeah.
and I'll do it for you, but it won't be close.
And I'd like to address this because Robert brings up a good point that maybe those considering the two, LCD and OLED, would have to ask themselves, burn-in risk and ABL. So the burn-in risk, let's put that aside for a second. I think the ABL or the dimming, ASBL, ABL is when a scene is super bright, but the OLED simply cannot make the entire scene bright because of limitations to energy and lifetime and all of those considerations. So in a super bright scene, let's say hockey SDR in vivid mode because you want it bright and clear. On the Sony, even the Sony A95L, it will start to dim in that scene, whereas the X95L will not. So then the question goes to your content. If you are watching lots of bright hockey sports, get the X95L. It will not dim. It'll stay bright. But
Yep.
if you don't watch sports, you're watching a lot of streaming content, Netflix, HDR, Blu-ray discs, and a little bit of gaming, then the A95L will be the best TV you've ever seen because the dimming won't be exposed as much. Or maybe in some gaming it might, but
Yeah.
ultimately you won't notice it. But if you watch a lot of sports, especially hockey, the X95L, and when I say a lot, at least 30%, then you won't be annoyed by the dimming that takes place on an OLED, unless it's a G3. G3 doesn't dim the same way the Sony does. So that's why I think this is what Robert's saying. The OLED's a hard sell until they solve that. And I think the G3 has solved it, but then it has its own other issues. But then burn-in risk, and I think this is a mixed bag.
Yep.
If you want to keep your TV for 10 years, I don't know. OLED might not be the way to go. If you replace your TV every 5 or 6 years, LCD TVs have been proven that they could last 5 or 6 years. What are your thoughts on burn-in risk, Brian?
So burn-in for me, I'll give you an example. If you're somebody that wants to watch, say, NFL Red Zone all day long, right, which is, it has a red logo in the corner that even with limited breaks, it just says Red Zone. You'll have image retention, no doubt, especially on the Sony OLED. That will be there. Will it be permanent? I don't know. You just have to be mindful to switch up your content. You can actually go away from burning completely as long as you're okay switching your content. However, was Robert was his name? If you're going to watch something like hockey all day long, you are going to risk that HUD that's there. And the reason, right, FOMO, is hockey's full field white, and soccer to some degree.
The window is so bright, yeah.
Yeah,
big.
and soccer
Yeah.
to some degree is a large green field that doesn't have commercial breaks. So soccer is another one that dims not quite as badly as hockey. If you're a hockey fan, I would stay with an LED, no question. But as far as
Yeah.
burn-in, even for gamers, other than using the Windows menus open, they're fine for gaming.
And I'd like to mention Getty. So, if you guys just joined us, Getty literally just added to his cart and checked out and got himself a 100-inch TV, the U8K, for $5,000. He's saying $5,000 for a 100-inch TV? That's an easy buy, folks. And for context, a good ultra short throw projector from Hisense, right? It's $5,000 with a 100-inch
Yeah.
screen and all that. And I'm
Yep.
like, and it's going to not even come close to this U8K. So for me, I agree with Getty. If you have the budget and the space, enjoy that 100-inch TV. And it's a crowd pleaser. I don't know how many people realize if you live with family, wife, kids, friends, roommates, they walk into a room with a 100-inch TV, they'll forget about the word OLED. Like, oh my gosh, what is this, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's
happens
the
with it.
impact, the immersion from 10 feet, 9 feet. It doesn't matter how far away you are. You're like, oh my, what is that, right? It is
So I
mind-blowing.
love about what G-Man did. G-Man, I know this is not something you intended to do, but the buying affirmation is real. You just bought it, and you're like, yo, easy buy. You're like, easy work. Even though you spent the whole first hour of the stream having us encourage it, now you're like, yo, done. So I totally understand what you're saying. It is, for that amount of money, you're right. But, Classy just jumped in. What's up, Classy?
Hey,
He has
Classy.
a great point. Or Classy, if you put his comment up there, people have always forgot that LCDs have local dimming zones. FPL.
Oh, wait. Getty literally bought the last one.
Oh my God! I hope
It's
it
no
comes
longer
through.
available.
Hope it comes
It
through.
was available earlier in the stream. He
Yeah.
buys it and it's no
Yeah, you
longer
bought the
available.
last one. But what Classy's point was great is that Ratings did that OLED burn-in test, and what we found is that the TVs themselves failed before they could burn in.
Yes,
So
that's
as his
a good
point
point.
is, those full array local dimming, a lot of times the local dimming will disable outside of content, which is why they do it. But he's right. The Z9D, one of the best TVs ever made, had a lot of problems with the failing zones. So they're not perfect either. They do burn out. I wouldn't leave them on all day. And some will say that even LEDs do burn in too
And
if you
this
keep the
is,
same
yeah,
thing on.
I definitely have to emphasize what Classy says right here. The LCD stack is more complicated than the OLED stack. Now, if it's a basic LCD, like we talked about, the Samsung CU7000, right? It's got no dimming zones. It is just a direct lit, side edge lit LCD TV. That TV is going to last long. It's got less parts, but you have local dimming zones, right? Each of these dimming zones are constantly being energized, shifting, right? Blooming control, all of that. And then you have mini LEDs behind it doing the same thing. So you're controlling mini LEDs, you're controlling dimming zones, and then you have finally your LCD layer on top. That's a lot of electronics constantly charging, discharging, charging, discharging.
Yep.
And why do you get LCD TV? Because it's brighter. Well, that means it runs hotter. So you
Most
have a
that.
TV that actually runs hotter, and there's no heat sink like on the OLED because the OLEDs are so scared of this burn-in, this durability. Sony's putting a heat sink, right? LG MLA has a heat sink. This heat sink helps, and it's a premium product, so the heat sink is
Yep.
great. No one's ever complained about an LCD that needs a heat sink, so they're not going to put it in there. So you have a
Yeah.
TV that's getting very hot, and it's just over time. I think Ratings is on the right track in that the durability of these TVs end up being a wash. Now, burn-in is unique to OLED, but as we said, it might end up failing before burn-in becomes an issue. So,
Yeah.
and this applies to LCD TVs as well. What was it? They had a 2-year-old A95K or A95 or A90K or something, or I'm sorry, X.
EDK guide.
It was an X95K, right? Which is an LCD TV.
Oh,
It failed before, or X90J. It failed in 2 years, 2.5 years. It's not even an OLED TV. And so it does,
yeah.
just because it's an OLED or an LCD, it's a whole, don't miss the forest for the trees. The tree is burning.
Yeah.
The forest is, what if it doesn't turn on? And which is what's
Yeah.
happening.
You're like, no burn-in. The power supply blew up, but there's no burn-in, baby. That's all we care about.
Exactly. So yeah, guys, and reliability is such a, it's, if you want a reliable TV, get the simple LCD edge lit, direct lit TV from TCL, Hisense, or Samsung, and you're safe. But then the image quality is like, right? So there's no free lunch, my friend.
Wow, guys, we have 313 in the chat. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Please hit like. This is probably the first live stream we've done in a minute, you and I together, right? Where
I
we've just
know,
done a
we've been
random
so
live stream.
busy. Yeah, so
really appreciate you guys jumping on. So again, it's a Saturday. There's no one else I'd rather be with than you guys, and then my partner Foma. I hope you enjoy the content that him and I have been doing, especially this year.
absolutely.
We've been chilling. So thank you so much. So please hit like.
Now, Getty, he's so excited. Getty just,
Spending all his money now. He's like, yeah, let's do it.
he was the last one to buy this 100-inch TV now that it's unavailable, right, Getty? So my first
Getty's
OLED,
asking me now what I think after he bought it. He's like, yo, so he tells me. So if you want to, here's the thing. I'm gonna predict this. Getty, if I tell you that it's not as good as you think, this is where the white knuckle part of the stream comes in. So I'm not gonna just mess with you, but
Now Brian has the U8K, not the 100-inch, and we're assuming that the larger size will be very similar. Obviously, it's not going to be identical, but I'll tell you, Hisense is selling this TV at a price it's not making a lot of money on. First of all, it's trying to see, it's testing the market to see if there's an interest in 100-inch, and the rate that the uptake, the TCL QM8 at 98 inches is like $8,000, $7,000. This TV at 5,000.
Really that big a difference?
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
is it really?
Oh, let me look it up right now.
So
Maybe they've changed,
wow.
but let's see. The QM8 at 98 inches, and they're essentially very similar TVs, by the way.
Yeah, so Getty, I'll see. I'm supposed to see it this week. It was supposed to be last week. It's been delayed at Value Electronics. He ordered it. I'm expecting it to be as similar to the U8K that I have, but obviously more impactful. It's large. I imagine the zones are higher.
$9,000. I mean, it's not $4,000 better. I guarantee you guys that. And so that's why 5,000 for 100 inch is a no-brainer right now, right? And this is now it's too late. You guys can go in there and check it, and it's unavailable in where I am. If Getty, tell us what state you're in, because I know it's also region specific. People in DC told me that the 100 inch is no longer available in the DC area for the last week now. So depending on where you are, so Getty, tell us where you are. But yeah, it looks like that's the way to go. But do not go to the TCL QM8 and pay 9,000. I know they're gonna match the price.
Getty's already second guessing it. He's like,
Yeah.
so
Oh, well, now that it's sold out,
it's the last one.
It's like, what?
Getty, don't let me down, baby. Don't leave me at the end of the stream. Yeah, I just got out of that. Remember FOMO with the QM8? The guy bought it in the beginning of the stream. By the end, he goes, I pulled out. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for all the official reviews.
After 3 hours, I'm like, oh my God, the guy started on our stream. And he's like, nah, I can't do it.
Can't do it.
White knuckled it the whole time.
So the A95L.
Awesome.
I want to get the 77-inch A95L, but I'm scared to death of burn-in. So here we are. No.
Here we go.
I'm not going to say it won't burn in. If it fails, it will fail for another reason, but it won't be burn-in.
FOMO says it won't. I'm not going to say that. Don't hold me to it, but...
Well, you know what he's going to do? FOMO said it won't burn in. I was watching CNN 24/7, and damn it, he was wrong, right? I got it from my bar, and I'm watching ESPN all day long.
Yeah,
so
I fall asleep with it on. I listen to bedtime stories for Fox or CNN.
The risk of burn-in is always there if you have static content that's just constantly frozen there, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you're watching different things all day long, that's fine. Now, I have a few viewers who reached out to me and says, no, that's wrong. I've had this, whatever it is, right? C2 or A90J, doesn't matter. They said, I don't do anything crazy. I still have burn-in. So there are those, for whatever reason they have. And then you have a much more number, a larger number who's like, I've had this TV for 3 years, C9. No burn-in. So maybe it's a panel lottery. Maybe some panels are more susceptible to others. So if you're afraid of burn-in, get a G3 with a 5-year panel warranty.
Yeah. Well, some people have said to us, hey, I had burn-in rather quickly. Then that's just a defective panel. That's not burn-in. I mean, well, it's still burn-in, but I would say that's something the manufacturer probably would help you with if you had burn-in. Because they can check the hours of the TV. If you're being honest and it burns in like in a half an hour, clearly that's a defective panel.
Yep. So, like, I recommend this one right here. If you are afraid of burn-in and you've never had a Sony TV, so you don't know what XR Clear is or anything like that, and you've never had an OLED, you get the G3, $3,800, 5-year panel warranty. It's going to look great. It's your first OLED. And if there's any risk of burn-in, it'll be taken care of by the panel warranty where they will pay for the replacement. You might have to pay for the labor. If you get it at Best Buy, then you have this 2-year warranty as well. You get it at CostCo. If they have this at CostCo, right, there's a 5-year warranty there. So I don't think the A95L is in Costco, but at least with the G3 up to 77 inches, you have the brightness of the MLA and the burn-in. Risk is reduced because you have some warranty coverage there. So yeah, that's rough, man. Nothing's perfect. Hey, thanks Ty for the follow-up. TCL 98-inch dropped in price to $3,500. No, that is a different TV. But let's talk about the TCL 98. It's not the QM8, but let's say 98-inch. I think it's their XL.
I don't think that has.
It's not a mini LED. For sure.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Ty, that's a
totally Here we go. TV. So this is their basic TV, right? The S5. It may not even have dimming zones, but this is what we talked about. This TV might end up lasting the longest if it doesn't have dimming zones, if it's edge
nothing in it.
Right. I mean, it's a basic TV. It's LED. Let me double check if it has dimming zones. It's direct lit. There you go. This makes this TV actually compelling. To me, it is basic. HDR won't be impressive, but at 100 inches or 98 inches, who cares? So, Ty, get the TCL. Brian.
Wait, which TCL?
This one. $3,500.
Oh my God!
Direct link. Come on.
I was just telling Ty to buy. What was Ty gonna buy? An A95L?
Okay, so
I mean,
he's debating between the X95 and the A95L. But Ty, what TV are you coming from? What is our rule? As long as this TV is slightly better than the one you're coming from, but it's 100 inches, what TV are you coming from, Ty? Okay, so this is Ty's original question, right? This is it. He's debating between the X95. These are like flagship pricing, right? And then now he's like, oh, wait. All this talk with Getty about 100 inches, I got FOMO. So he's got FOMO for QD-OLED. He's got FOMO for XR Clear. And now he's got FOMO for 98 inches, but you can't have it all.
Yeah, but FOMO, look what I'm trying to say to you. Look what you did to this poor guy. His question had nothing to do with 98. He spent, I think it was $10 super chat. You're like, look, man, he was choosing between two flagships. And you're like, hey, Ty, how about 98 inches, baby? And now you're looking at the most basic TCL with no processing, no local dimming at all.
Nothing.
You're going to get that thing home, and it's going to be gray, and you're going to go, son of a... You're talking about the two best TVs in the world, and I think Brandon did the TCL. I think this is one of the first TVs he got, and yeah, he liked the size, but it's so basic, my man. That
Ty, again, are you a gamer? If you're a gamer, I would not recommend this TV. If you're a gamer, go with a 77-inch X95L. Obviously, right? What is it you plan to do with this TV? Because if he's watching sports, this is the way to go.
You know what I just discovered about you? The reason why FOMO's name is FOMO is he tries to give you an answer and then he makes you want some other crap. So now, Ty, I don't know if you're married. You're like, this guy over here said 85 isn't big enough. Honey, we're going 98. So you actually create more FOMO.
Well, or Getty.
You gave an answer.
Getty, honey, I got the last 100 inch. It's on its way.
She's like, you said 65. No. This guy here, he's my helper. Oh my God. And you do it with a smile. That's so funny.
SB's got a great question. Okay, if you guys don't know, the Samsung S89C is a WOLED TV. It is not QD-OLED. And the C3, same technology, right? And I'm telling everyone the same thing. Whether it's the S90C at 83 inches or the S89C at 77 inches, go with the LG C3. Because LG knows what it's doing with the WOLED. They've been doing this longer than anyone else. Samsung, literally, this is their first generation playing with WOLED from LG Display. Why even deal with that? Unless it's really cheap. So the caveat is, if Samsung is giving away the S89C, let's say it's $1,000 cheaper. Okay, you're saving $1,000, right? At least you have that. But if it's within a couple of hundred, don't even deal with it. Just get the C3. So for those of you looking at the S89C, or get the A80L, right? A80L or the C3 or the A75L over the 89C. Well, 89C is 77 inches, so it'd be the C3 or the A80L. Yeah, don't even look at the 89C. Even the G2 would be better.
You need 100 inch, baby. Is what you need.
Well,
we should retitle the thumbnail 100 inches. Do or die, baby.
Wait. So here we go. Brandon Becker, he's calling me out. 100-inch crap TV, S4, S5, is not better than a smaller, great TV. You're just going to have an even bigger, awful experience. And I'm thinking, okay, nothing beats
but Brandon, Brandon said it the best way. He's like, look, Brandon's like, take that word immersion and move it away for a second. If you have a crappy image, now I just have a larger, crappy image. Now, because Ty's back. But now Brandon's going to have Getty G-Man now going into the return button say, he said 100-inch TVs. Oh, my God.
And Ty, now that I know where you're coming from, we can forget this TV. Come on. You're coming from a C9. You, my friend, have to go with the A95L because, and you're a Sony guy, so you're used to what Sony is. The A95L is just so good with the XR Clear and QD-OLED. It is actually a jump from the C9. Now, if you're going from a C9 to a C3, I'd say, unless it's bigger, don't bother. But the 65 inch is way too small. 77 inch is a nice bump. Or what do we talk about? Brian, what about 83-inch A80L? Maybe he should consider that. So this is a great question. If he's coming from a 65-inch C9, I think he still gets image quality improvement going to an A80L. But an 83-inch A80L gives him size as well. And I know you didn't ask that, Ty, but if you can fit an 83-inch for a similar price of $4,000, it's actually less expensive than a 77-inch A95L. I might go with the 83-inch A80L.
If you can get the size, I would, Ty. But the guy, remember, the C9 was probably the brightest, most saturated LG ever made, because they went the C8, C9 FOMO was more of a Samsung OLED, and then they got more natural with the CX, C1, C2, and C3. So the C9 was a very saturated, brighter than you think. That's why they were so burn-in prone. Was the C9. So it's a very bright and saturated OLED. So I would only recommend going with another OLED. I just can't see you going with a
agreed.
an LED
And
of any
at 4,500, it looks like you're saving a little money compared to a 77-inch A95L, and you're getting everything that Sony is doing so well this year, processing, and it'll be better than the C9 in terms of overall image quality, and it's larger. That is the big impact for me. I mean, going from 65 to 77, small jump. 65 to 83, I think you nailed it. And it has a heatsink, right? Is that what Rob said?
Yep.
It's an 83-inch
So the
TV with a heatsink.
Yeah, and the C8, C9, as good as they were, they really lacked upscaling. They were still, LG was really behind until the CX as far as upscaling goes. So, and streaming wasn't as prominent in those days.
Nope.
Back then. So now you have, it's so important now.
All right.
Terry?
Here's a model I haven't heard all year. Jesse, thank you for the super chat. What do you guys think of a 2023 LG QNED 80? Is Hisense U7 a better choice than the QNED 80 at 75 inches? So the QNED 80 appears to be a retread of last year's QNED. It is nothing new for 2023. It just is repackaged again for 2023. To me, there were a lot of issues with it last year. Corner bleed. I mean, it had the right intentions. Execution was short. Now, the U7 is not necessarily a better TV in terms of gaming. The QNED is a better gaming TV. Full-featured, LG's figured it out. But what are you using this TV for? So, putting aside the overall image quality, I think the U7 is going to be more impactful. It'll have better contrast, better HDR, better specular highlights. But the QNED 80 will have better motion settings, possibly, and definitely better gaming features. What are you using it for? If it's just for streaming and watching basic content, get U7. What are your thoughts about the QNED? QNED.
So I think FOMO, the QNED, doesn't have as good a gaming features as the LG OLED lineup. It only has two HDMI 2.1s, I think. And it does have 120. It's not as fully featured as their OLED lineup. The problem I have, Jesse, is the U7K will be supported by Hisense for years to come. I can't say that with LG. I don't like that it's a retread, which means it doesn't have the same processing that the new LGs have this year. So I don't think you're going to have the expression enhancer FOMO and those things that you and I really like from LG this year. So it's just they're just really hard to recommend it. I just can't recommend a TV they're not really supporting, and they really don't know what to do with it. So I struggle with that. So I would have to say the U7.
And the question is it $200 better? So the 75-inch U7 is $1,000, and the QNED 80 is $1,300. That $300 difference, if it was the same, meaning if this was also $999, but I would say wait until this drops to $999, because I don't see it being $300 better. Unless there's a specific something from LG, some feature that you're looking at, let us know, like hardcore gaming, whatever.
Do me a favor, FOMO. Pull up Paul Wong with the initial Aquas push by Friends of Robert Zone. Put that up for me.
Sharp? The Sharp?
Yep.
The XLED? Okay. Let's see. All right, here it is. This one, right?
He's got a couple of them. I don't see it. Yeah, I just see Jesse still.
So is this the one? 75 or 65 inch?
It just says it's Paul Wong. He says something about us pushing the XLED, but then not following up on it. I
Okay.
can't see. He's come out. Yeah, so he was asking a while ago, con man, but he called us a con man. Where is he?
Well,
Yeah, I understand. I'm not going to go after him. Just it's under anyway. So Paul Wong, I think what you're saying is that the XLED's initial videos were very positive, and then we haven't followed up. The problem is the XLED is one TV, and while I was very happy to see Sharp return, and I was very impressed with it, I think spec wise, build quality wise, sound wise, the TV's awesome. I think its processing actually is worse than when I saw it. So the XLED that I saw the first time did not perform the same way the one did at the shootout. And the
mhm.
XLED that I put against the QM95C, Paul, didn't perform as well as the first XLED that I saw. So whether they pushed something back with their processing or they hurt it, the TV itself, technology wise, I think is very solid. But there's nothing for me to follow up on.
Well, let
It's
me
still
tell
a very
you, for sure, after the shootout, Sharp executives were not happy with how their TV looked. They
yes,
are going back to the firmware and wondering what happened. So
yes.
they're
So
addressing
yeah,
its competitiveness in the market. I don't think they realize how good the competition was in terms of the other, well, the
yeah,
Hisense and the
yeah.
Samsung. Yeah.
So Paul, it wasn't a matter of con. It wasn't a matter of that was my thoughts of the TV when I first saw it. I called FOMO on the phone after and told them about it. Um, why there's no follow up? It's much like the Hisense UX. It's such a limited supply TV. There's really nothing else for us to say
Hmm.
in terms of people. And I hate to say this, Paul, but this is the truth. Our views on those TVs, people aren't that interested. So you and I think John Hooper, what's up, John from Vienna? Very rarely ask about the XLED. And unfortunately, in the shootout, it got absolutely annihilated. But I think it's a processing thing or a firmware, I should say a firmware thing, because it's got a higher zone count than any of the TVs that were there. And I think the potential is there. But as far as us following up, I have nothing else to report until they update it.
And something to
But I'm not,
consider, you saw the price, right? The 65 inch was over $2,000. Why would I not be recommending the 77-inch S90C? Because image quality is important
yeah,
to me and size. However,
yeah,
what hasn't changed is arguably the Sharp has probably the best audio system of any 65-inch TV.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
that's
Paul, it's
what it
very,
invested
yeah.
in.
And Paul, it's a very niche product too. Same with the UX. The UX is also very niche. I've covered it. I'm one of the only people that have covered it on the whole platform. Not a lot of interest in it. So if we don't have a lot of interest, like here, you're asking the question, and I'm talking to you on it, but we don't get a lot of questions, FOMO, about the UX or even the XLED. So that's why you're not hearing us do much on it.
Hmm.
As far as the follow up, if I hear something from Sharp and they update it, I'll be more than happy to do another video on it.
Hmm.
So I
And
appreciate, Paul. I do appreciate the questions.
and
If he's still there,
if he's still there, hey
he's still
Tunka,
there.
thank you for that super chat. Using an X900H, so he's used to Sony, and I plan to switch to
Ooh, not
S95C.
pretty.
So you're going from a LCD TV that was barely bright enough for HDR. The contrast was just not good at all. Going to a QD-OLED. Well, I have a worse experience with low bitrate content. That is a non-issue because the improvement to contrast, specular highlights, color luminance, I mean,
Yeah,
everything layered on each other on a QD OLED is so much greater than the X900H's processing. Any minor advantage it may have, non-issue. But I would suggest you consider the S90C because if it's 77 inches, you're paying a lot for the S95C because of the One Connect box. So if you need the One Connect box, definitely get it, right? It comes with the One Connect box. It's unique, and it's very convenient to have. I have the 77-inch S95C. I find the One Connect box convenient, but the cable's a little short. But other than that, Twitch streaming or Netflix, the low bit rate. Now, if A80L or A95L is on your list, why not consider that? Like A80L is less expensive, right? So going from X900H to A80L, you're staying in the Sony family. You're getting Sony processing, you're getting Sony colors, and you're in an OLED. And since you don't know the difference between quantum dot OLED and WOLED because you had never had an OLED, start with a WOLED from A80L and you'll get a larger size, maybe 83-inch, without knowing what you're missing because you've never had a quantum dot OLED before.
And also, I mean, he had the 900H, as we know better than anybody. It was very controversial. That TV was positioned as the gaming TV, even though it lacked the gaming features that we later on needed. But it had a low contrast ratio, wasn't very bright. It was positioned as that, and that's why you're seeing the lack of picture quality on it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the X90L and that stuff is really the X900H's successor. That's why they got rid of it completely.
I mean, the 77-inch is $28.99. It's a great price. So tell us what your budget is, Atunka, and, we'll help guide you towards the light.
Damn, 337 in the chat. Please hit like, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. For sure. Hey, Getty, thank you for the super chat. He's so excited.
You want to star in this, baby?
So he was about to pull the trigger on the 85-inch UX that we liked once it came out. But when I heard there would be a 100-inch U8K, got to wait for the price. And the price was $10,000 at launch. That was the thing. But then when it actually released, it was like $49.99. I'm like, what? And it's a limited release, I believe. That's why they're already sold out. I don't think there's that many people buying up $5,000 TVs. But the fact that it's sold out means that the limited release, people are into 100-inch TVs.
Now, FOMO, do you think Hisense is doing that because TCL is their competitor and they saw a couple of years ago they were going big? Maybe they have to have something in that space, right? Because wasn't the U8H 65 only? And they were out of the... Because you know what? When you first got into Hisense, to me, FOMO put Hisense on the map. Mm-hmm. But I remember it wasn't an option because they maxed at 65. Do you think they took a cue from TCL and said, hey, wait, we got to be in this mini LED at large? Think they're following them a little bit just to be careful?
Definitely Hisense is tracking TCL. But what's interesting is TCL has a separate USA division as well. And they have unique products that's only for the USA. And Hisense does the same. They have regionally specific models, but the model numbers are exactly the same. So that's kind of confusing. At least TCL, each region has their own model number. So like, for example, the UK or Europe doesn't have a QM8 equivalent. They have something slightly better that's a year old. And then this year's C8 series is slightly worse with less dimming zones. And their Android is a little bit different than our Google TV. And whereas Hisense, U7 in Europe and the U7 in USA, same model number, completely different TVs, right? So,
I hate to do that.
Yeah, I know. So Hisense in the USA, they are very cautious because I know in Australia last year, they released a lot of high-end Hisense TVs to the Australian market to test. It failed miserably. It was not good. And that's why they never released it here. So they were testing in the Australian market, and then they bring what they feel, okay, this will work, and they bring it over here. So the U8K, even though it's being released here at an amazing price, a similar TV was already released in Australia last year at multiple levels, right? You had 98-inch, 100-inch, but there were versions of the U7, the U8H. I mean, just different types to see what would sell, what the problems were. And so when they released the U8K, it actually has already been kind of fine-tuned outside of the U.S. already, which I love that they do that because I hate being a guinea pig. But
sorry, Australia.
I know.
Sorry, my bad. Oh man,
is the S95C worth it compared to the QM8 50-inch, $500 difference? It's a 5-inch difference too, isn't it? Because the 50 inches. Yeah. I mean, I go with it for the 5-inch and the image quality as well. Yeah. I mean, you got a QD-OLED.
Yeah, and the Q90C is also a step back this year from the Q95C.
And why not the S90C, right? S90C 55. I understand you want the second generation panel. So, okay, S95C. I think it's worth it for the $500 difference for many reasons. but mostly because the image quality, the gaming quality, all of that, I believe you are getting your money's worth for that $500 in terms of flagship performance. We're talking flagship differences here.
Well, and then we also showed her that we saw the QM9 or the S95C beat the 900C, let alone the N90C. So
Right.
it is brighter.
And I see your super chat, John Mason. I don't see his question though. So if you have a question, come on back
Just follow up.
and yeah, follow up and we'll look for it. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming by. And don't forget to click like on your way out or on your way in.
Almost 328 on a Saturday. Nice.
I know, right? Apparently no one's interested in college football today.
Everybody wants to hang out though. We appreciate you guys being on. Again, we have not streamed together, just a random live stream in a while. So
Yeah,
good to have
it's been a
you
while.
tonight.
It's been a while. Hey, Jean-Pierre Valenzuela. It's so
It's a
international.
great name, by the way.
Love the
It's
name.
smooth. It's like Jean-Pierre Valenzuela.
He sounds like a Valentino, right? It's like
Yeah, that's smooth.
yeah, it's
If I had
if
that
you-
name, I would never just say Jean-Pierre. I would say the whole name.
yeah,
Just going to like a Outback or something. What table? Jean-Pierre Valenzuela. Yeah, we'll do that all day.
I would love the context in which his name appears. It's like your girlfriend's to you. Yeah, I met this guy. His name is Jean-Pierre Valenzuela. We're hanging out.
What? That is. And you know that better be your real name too. Anyway, sorry, what was the question?
The question is motion quality affected by screen size. The answer is yes. So not motion quality, but your perception of motion artifacts it's more easily perceived. So motion artifacts on your iPhone or smartphone or iPad, you won't notice it as well. Now, as the screen gets brighter and bigger, all those judder, stutter artifacts become more and more visible. So size and brightness and contrast, those three things, when they're all hitting, right, the perfect storm of size, brightness, and contrast, you're going to notice everything. And this is why a lot of people were jarred by Avatar Way of the Water, right? In a small little grading monitor, oh, everything looks great. And they put it up, oh my gosh, what's all that soap opera, right? So soap opera that may not be as noticeable on a small monitor, you need to have it on a large screen, bright laser projector to really see the issues. And so in this case, the larger the TV, the more likely you have to get a higher quality if you're sensitive to motion. So this is why, if you're coming from a Sony, stay with a Sony. An 83-inch size, 85-inch size, Sony has the most motion settings for you to adjust to those sensitivities, whereas TCL has the least, right? So if you go extremes, TCL has the least motion settings, Sony has the most, and everyone else is in between. And so you have to choose a model or a brand that fits your preferences. Some people don't care about soap opera. Get a TCL, put it on max, you're done. But if you are sensitive to soap opera or stutter, then the Sony gives you that fine tuning. At the larger sizes, that's even more important. So yeah, it's not motion quality of the content per se, it's your perception. You can see it more easily now, especially if it's large and bright. So something to think about. Good question. This is awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Which means we got to click like. All right, let's see.
Lisa.
Oh, Jean-Pierre. Okay, and now that we've encouraged them, thank you for the super chat. Here we have another man with a fancy name.
Another great name.
Louis Charles
Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Desjardins, right? I'm trying to pronounce it in French.
That's what this
Desjardins.
one is, you know.
Desjardins. Louis Charles Desjardins.
I'm going to add
international
I'm gonna add a
names,
couple
I love
names
it.
to my name.
I know, we're going to have to change our names to Latin or French or Italian. Coming from a 77-inch C10, is the G3 a good enough step up for gaming, or should I wait for 2024 TVs? I want Dolby Vision and 4 2.1 ports. Thank you. So is the G3 good enough step up for gaming, or should I wait for 24? So the G3 has... Go ahead.
Don't you have 4 HDMI 2.1 on the CX?
He does, but he's wondering if the G3 is a good upgrade. He wants to keep the Dolby Vision and the 4. That's why he's not leaving LG.
Okay.
That's why Sony's not being considered, right? So the question is whether the G4 will be better. And the question for you is, clearly you want the gaming or 2.1 ports. I don't know how much better the G4 gaming is, but many have been disappointed by the G3 SDR gaming and some of their gaming features. They don't have enough of the picture modes, right? You talked about that, Brian, where the S90C has all these picture modes, right? For whatever reason, the G3 this year has like 2. So it's like,
I don't know why
what
they did
happened,
that. Yeah.
right? So
The
yes.
C1's got 4 of them, so I don't know why they would
Yes.
do that.
So wait, because if you are a gamer, Louis, can I call you Louis? If you are a gamer, the G4 needs to address those things. And for cinema enthusiasts, the G4 processing and image quality processing needs to be improved. I remember Dwayne Davis was not happy with the G3 and prefers the G2 color processing. So there are a couple things that LG can do next year. If you're not in a rush, wait. Might as well wait and get all those improvements to both gaming settings as well. Maybe the SDR will be fixed. The G3 SDR just was not great. So yeah, wait, because there are specific things that we can talk about that it may be of interest to you. Now, if you say to me, oh, I just watch news and Netflix, get the G3. I cannot imagine news and Netflix getting better on a G4. So
Yeah, well, and I think too the problem, Charles, is that you're also going from a 77-inch to another 77-inch, which is always very hard for us to recommend you upgrading same size. I think the G3 is much better than the CX in terms of its overall picture quality. Even though the gaming on the CX or the G3 is not quite as good as it was with the G2, it's better than the CX. I'll tell you that. However, it's just not appreciable difference for you to make that choice when you can already wait for the G4 and what it may promise. And we have no insight into what LG will do.
nope.
I've heard nothing from them. So I've heard a lot from Sony, nothing from LG and what their plans are.
Now, my only prediction for LG, and it's more than just a prediction, this will keep you guys in business. The C4 better have some form of MLA. It doesn't have to be their best MLA, but they need to cut down MLA on the
Yep.
C4. Otherwise, it will not be able to compete with the S90C next year or S90D.
And
So, yeah.
well, and FOMO, we need some parity between the 42. Was it 42, 48, and 83? They need to maybe the C series has to all have that little form of MLA. Or if you remember last year, those 2 small ones really had nothing in terms of. Remember the 42 and the 48 were exactly the same as the C2. That really turned a lot of people off because they're like, why would I even buy a C3 then, other than an expression enhancer? So I think they really need to have more parity, make the C series that little bit better, and then go all the way to the lineup.
Yeah.
83, a little bit of MLA would be great.
Now, this is a common question because the prices are so similar. Chris asks, the Sony 77-inch A95L or the 83-inch A80L? Brian, your use case. I know Chris hasn't told us what his use case is, but which one would you choose? Because I know you just said you love the A95L, great gaming TV.
Yeah.
What about the A8380L, A80L?
So, Chris, the question really falls back to you. Now, I might be alone on reviewers. I think the A95L is above and beyond the G3 and S95C. I don't think they're close. I think the A95L is a good deal better, primarily because of XR Clear. That said, if you need a larger TV, the A95L cannot grow. So what you would get is probably the best 83-inch A80L, not because it has a heatsink or any of that nonsense. It does have it. It doesn't really help it. They need the heatsink because of the panel size. It's the XR Clear in tandem with the WRGB OLED that makes it so much better than the rest of the 83s. So you're going XR Clear versus XR Clear. However, I'll tell you, 77 versus 83 is 16% size difference. It is a massive jump.
Yeah.
I have them both. If you need 83, it's an easy decision. If 77 is as big as you want to go, the A95L does beat it. But if you need 83, don't hesitate. 80L is the way to go.
I agree. If you're coming from like an A80J, go with the 83 because now you're getting larger, and that size impact I think does make a difference. If you're a connoisseur of HDR, specular highlights, image quality, and you need to keep the same size, then go with the QD-OLED and keep that same size. but I like to defer to size if the image quality is close enough. And I think there's an argument to be made that image quality between the A80L and A95L is close enough for most content, streaming, sports, Netflix, and the like, right? But game mode, I love this question by Code Red Tonio. Does the G3 game mode really have color pop issues and dim and dull issues in HGIG mode? I bring this question up, Brian, because we talked about this. So is it dull and dim in HGIG mode? Is it a bad gaming experience because they have to reduce input lag? Thanks. And I'm just going to intro this for you, Brian. It's game specific, isn't it? This HGIG is a mess. Go forth, my friend. What is your answer?
Yeah, I mean, this makes me crazy, even with all the other channels where HGIG is something they stick with exclusively. HGIG games that are supported look great, and the reason why you can tell, FOMO, is that the specular highlights in HGIG are brighter than dynamic tone mapping. So dynamic tone mapping covers the entire screen, and it looks very bright, and then changes with the scene. But HGIG, if you look at the same game that is supported, the sun or the specular highlights are a good deal brighter, and then that way you know it's doing something. But having HGIG set all the time when it's not supported, to me, doesn't make any sense because it's not being supported. Just like Dolby Vision gaming, you wouldn't have Dolby Vision enabled in Xbox if you don't have a Dolby Vision enabled game. So, do I think the C3 or the G3 has bad HGIG? I haven't spent enough time with it recently because I haven't covered it since it launched, FOMO. I haven't had it again.
Yeah.
I don't know what the issues are. KG or Classy may know that answer better than I do. But I don't feel it's a massive issue. I think LG is the only one that actually has a true HGIG mode that's labeled HGIG. I think it's a great option to have. I wouldn't stay away from it because I think it's broken or anything. And even when I've heard it's broken, it still looks good. So maybe that's accuracy. But I don't think HGIG should be enabled unless it's supported. So to me, if HGIG, and I know some people disagreed, I think if HGIG looks the same as dynamic tone mapping off, I don't think it's really doing anything because I've seen it enabled when it is supported and it looks fantastic.
Now, this goes to the confusion. You don't know if a game is properly graded for HGIG. There's no quality control with HGIG. Just because a box says HGIG does not mean anyone on the development team even opened the best practices of HGIG. It means nothing. Now, it's good that LG has it, by the way, and I like that LG labels it HGIG. Other TV makers like Sony and Samsung, they don't have an HGIG mode per se, but they do have their quote-unquote accurate mode that very much resembles HGIG, but don't chase. It's like Dolby Vision. Don't buy a TV chasing Dolby Vision or HGIG. Buy a TV that does what it does well, and you'll always have a picture mode that you will like, because sometimes the content needs help. And so for me, I really like S90C or S95C for gaming because there's always a mode that I like. And same with the Sony. So, but again, if you have experience with LG OLEDs before for gaming, stick with it because you're comfortable with it. But if you're trying something new, hey, try something new.
Yeah. I think HGIG, like we said, it's a great feature to have. I mean, it's a great extra feature that the other ones don't have. But in my experience, when a game is supported, it does look better because, again, it's bright where it's supposed to be bright. It's not just universal on the whole or global on the whole screen. But it's another thing, FOMO, I wouldn't chase. I think we're finding a lot of these niche features are not worth. Like we said this about Dolby Vision years ago. People bought those TVs specific to Dolby Vision. I'd actually be fine skipping Dolby Vision altogether, to be honest. If I had to choose, if I wanted a Samsung, I wouldn't base it on Dolby Vision at all.
Yeah. Michael Adams asks, S90C, 77-inch for sports, TV series and HDR movies, no gaming, $19.99, pay $19.99, or 85-inch QM8 or U8K or QM90C. S90C, 77-inch. You can't compare. As much as I like the 85-inch because of its size, I think the 77-inch S90C for $19.99, the value is so good. Just because it's $19.99, you're thinking, oh, these other TVs are also close to $19.99. This is a $2,800 TV being sold for $1999. Look at it at that context. The 77-inch S90C is easily the match for an LG G3 and the Sony A95L more often than not. That's crazy considering what the deal is, right? So if you can get it for $1999, S90C 77-inch for exactly what you're using it for. Sports, TV series, HDR movies, no gaming. You'll be thrilled. Especially if you're coming from an older LCD TV. I think it's a no-brainer for me.
Well, and FOMO goes, actually, this is the opposite of the last question, where you went 77-inch OLED versus 83-inch OLED. The picture quality is similar. Here, it's not. The 77-inch OLED will destroy the QM8, the U8K, and the Q90C.
Yeah.
But the same thing applies to you, Michael. If you need 85, you have to go 85 because that's what you need. But if you're coming from, say, even a 65, you'll appreciate the 77-inch difference. And I would probably say, unless you already have a 77-inch, but I think if you're coming from a smaller TV, the S90C is. My point is, don't jump to 85 if you can get the picture quality and the size.
Here's a great question. I love this one because it's so basic. FOMO, can you guide just for watching movies on Netflix? So we just, Netflix, HDR. Okay. 77-inch OLED. Not gaming, nothing fancy. Bargain OLED deal this Black Friday. What model, what brand? Sony, LG, Samsung. And I'm going to have to say
S90C.
S90C. Right?
Yeah.
1999, 77 inches.
Well, Abdul, you don't really. If you didn't say bargain, then I would go back to Sony because the XR Clear for Netflix is going to be beneficial. But if you're talking about bargain or value, there is no A75 at 77. The A80L is expensive. LG, do we even have B series this year? I haven't even looked.
Yes, right here.
I'm
showing it right here. B3 is $19.99. The same price as the S90C on the Samsung website.
But is the B series 60 hertz still?
No, it's a gaming capable TV. It has two HDMI 2.1s. It's using last year's processor, which is not a big deal.
Last year's processor.
But it's slightly dimmer. Ultimately, it's fine. But at $19.99, it's a slap in the face for anyone who is considering the S90C 77-inch. So this would be the alternative. So if you cannot get the S90C at the $19.99 price, then you have this 77-inch B3 at $19.99 because Sony A80L. You might want to wait for one of these TVs to drop to $19.99. That's not the B3, but yeah, it's so hard to recommend anything but the S90C for the 77-inch.
Yeah, and the FOMO, the problem for Abdul is that if you do go with the B series, you are going with a lesser processor, which then takes away any advantage that the LG would have over the Samsung, which would be processing. So Samsung's current processor is better than LG's last one. So S90C is really, you just can't beat it. I mean, it really is that great.
And Atunka, same suggestion. He asked, I love my 65-inch X900H. I want to try a 77-inch OLED, but Sony is no longer sold in my country. I use TV for Netflix suggestions. And so it goes to if you have Samsung available, Samsung S90C or 77-inch LG C3, B3. I don't know what the pricing is like. If you get the S90C, get the least expensive of those three options. Or two options, right? The C3 or the S90C. Because if it's mostly for Netflix and Twitch mostly, both will fit. Get the least expensive of the LG C3 versus Samsung S90C. I mean, you're limited in your OLED choices. And Panasonic, if you have a Panasonic 77-inch OLED, go with that one. That's another well-reviewed TV.
I wish we could see it.
I know, me too. Totally. And sticking with the S90C, I'm tempted by the S90C. Thank you, Dan Becker. But concerned about lifted blacks in a brighter room. Oh, Brian, let's talk about that because you have this experience. And ratings demonstrated the issue with the compensation software on Samsung. So let's forget the compensation software for now. Let's talk about when does this lifted black happen? Because you've seen it. I don't see it because I have a very dark room. And as we said, flashlights don't do it justice, right? But let me explain why it happens in the first place. So on a QD-OLED, they use a scatter plate to, the blue OLED is directly used as the blue in the RGB substructure. So you have red and green, which are QD, quantum dot color converters, and then the blue is from the blue OLED, but then they use a scatter plate to get that blue to do this, right? But unfortunately, when light shines the other way, it takes the light and does this as well. So it creates a lighter black. But that's only if the light is bright enough, right? And so the question is, when does this happen? And does it happen to everyone? Brian, you saw this. Why? When? What happened?
So Dan, if you want to go back to the video before last on my channel, we talked about the TVs are a product of your environment. The S95C was in direct sunlight. Now, direct sunlight does not mean bright room. What that means is that the sun is directly hitting it. Hitting it directly, you'll see the scattering, and the TV becomes unwatchable. It goes to a very light, hazy gray. It looks like it's dirty and it's unwatchable. But FOMO and I had the S95C versus the G3 2 days in a row in a bright room where the room was bright, but the sun didn't hit it directly and it was fine. But that one scenario, if the sun is going to hit it directly, meaning it's going to shine right on it, it's a no bueno. You can't go for either the S95C or S90C. Sony's QD-OLEDs have a different reflection coating. So they still have raised wax if it hits it just right, but not nearly as bad. So that's the only thing, just that one area.
Yeah. And it has to be that direct sunlight to make it that real difference. Otherwise, you're not going to notice it in most content.
Foam, I'm going to hop out for 1 second. I'm just going to keep the camera. I'm just going to use...
all right. Do your thing, man. Okay, Anthony Nielsen. Looking at X95L 85-inch versus the C3 83-inch, I assume you mean, versus the G3 77-inch for a living room. Not light controlled, but usually doesn't get very bright, sitting 12 feet away. Thoughts? So what TV are you coming from? If you're coming from an OLED, you might want to stick with the OLED because you'll notice the difference. I would say, because you're sitting 12 feet away, X95L. It's a living room that's not light controlled, so you're okay in mixed lighting. And I think the X95L is actually designed specifically for that. And you have a lot of options in that brightness. Now, again, what's your use case? Netflix, streaming, news, sports, X95L, perfect from 12 feet away, not a light controlled room, right? Critical movie watching, you are a cinema purist, right? You want to see creators' intent and everything that goes with that. You might want to consider an OLED, but what is your use? If you're mostly sports, streaming, all that good stuff, I'm fine with the 85-inch X95L, especially because it's such a good TV in a non-light controlled room. And you know, you don't care about deep blacks because the dynamic range is enough for you in that situation. So yeah, let us know what you end up and tell us if you like it. And here we go. Here's a gentleman, 2Sooth12. He loves the 85-inch size, right? He sees the difference. Can't go 77. Abdul, follow-up. Thanks, FOMO. And Brian, so last question. For watching only movies, not games, if I can afford getting a Sony A80L 77-inch, shall I go for it? Or you still say S90C? Go for the A80L. If you're only watching movies, not games, and it's streaming, the A80L does clean it up very well. Now, okay, actually, this is a great question. What would we choose? Because this is where preference comes in. Sony A80L, the motion and the upscaling and stuff, it's really phenomenal. But for me, I have enough Samsung TVs where I know I can live with the motion on the Samsung. I would get for myself the 77-inch Samsung S90C. And let's say I don't game, right? Because I do appreciate that extra pop that I'm used to. But having the A95L and seeing XR Clear, I can see what I'm missing but I'm okay missing it because I do enjoy the extra luminance. Which would you choose, Brian? If it's only
Ooh,
streaming,
that's actually a great question.
it is.
For the same reason you mentioned it, the reason why we choose the A80L over QD-OLEDs is because it's 83 inches. We haven't yet chosen the A80L. We have chosen it actually. The XR Clear is going to help you with upscaling even 1080p and even poor 4K content on Netflix or Prime or Disney Plus. But QD-OLED is still QD-OLED, so it is going to be brighter and more dynamic. I can say that Rob Brennan, who did say that he did have them compared, he would put the A80L against any of the QD-OLEDs, including the A95L. That's how confident he was in it at the same size. I probably would still lean towards the A80L. I just like the XR Clear that much.
Yeah.
I don't need and I don't need the OLEDs to be brighter, to be honest. I think they're okay the way they are.
And that's something I forgot. If you're coming from a Sony TV, go get the A80L. That's another consideration, right? So definitely, it's something. The XR Clear is not praised enough because people don't have it side by side. I think, yeah. But either one, you'll have a phenomenal impact. One, a bit on the processing, a little sharper. The other one, HDR luminance is just pops slightly more. It's always slight, right? Clydeful, thank you for the question. Oh, and by the way, if we missed your question, just keep on asking because things are moving kind of quick, so sometimes I miss it. So just ask it again. Hello, friends. For my living room, I am upgrading my 55-inch 10-year-old TV. I love these questions. Opens up the options. If my budget is $2,500, that's a really good budget. Should I get the 77-inch S90C, 85-inch X90L? Oh, you know where I'm going with this. 85-inch X90L. Brian, where would you, enough, 55-inch though, right? So even 77-inch would be a punch in the face for him because it's so much bigger than 55. But, what are your thoughts? Because I just want him to go big and never come back.
So we've been on since, what time did we get on, 3:30?
Right. Yeah, so we've been on for 2 hours now. So, yep, we're going to wrap it up maybe in 30 minutes or something.
If you guys hop in at the 10-minute mark and you peeked in, you're like, oh, S90, I'm out of here. If you popped in at the hour and 10-minute mark, you're like, oh, X90L, I'm out of here. So I know it seems like we're flip-flopping. We're not. We are responding. Clyde Phil's got a great question. Why is his specific? He's coming from a 55-inch 10-year-old TV. We're imagining we imagine it's an LCD, not a plasma. But the reason we're going with what he's saying is that we're looking at immersion and a better LED. Now, if he was coming from a 55-inch OLED, the conversation would be different. So we're recommending these based on his specific use case and what he's coming from. So it's not really, I know it sounds like we're recommending different ones every time. We are because it's his question.
Use case,
right?
Very specific.
So it's his use case. So that's why we always say there's no such thing as the best TV. It's what's the best TV for you. But I just think it's so funny because we are recommending these TVs equally and 20 different questions differently. You're like, you X90L, you S90C,
you 100-inch U8K.
Right? But I think FOMO is right, though. If you're coming from a 55-inch older TV, the X90L is going to be amazing. And FOMO, we can talk about real quick. I had a person on one of my videos that recently bought the 83-inch G3, and they pre-ordered it. And they were very nervous that it didn't have the MLA. But just like Clydeful, they were coming from a 55-inch older TV, but they needed the size. So I said, look, go ahead and buy it because no matter what, it's going to blow away what you had. Just MLA became something that they were stuck on because of we talked about it. So I think same way for Clydeful, I would go X90L at that size, no doubt.
I love car analogies, but it's kind of like you're coming from a Prius and you hear about the V8, but the Turbo 4 will blow away anything. You're coming from your 10-year-old bad Prius, right? But you can't get away from this V8 where everyone says it's amazing V8. But this Turbo 4 is going to be so much better than what you had anyway in terms of performance. You don't even know what you're
Yep.
missing, and that's the thing. As great as that
Yeah.
V8 is, unless you're coming from a V8 and going to a better V8, it's okay. You're not missing out on something you don't know exists, right? And next upgrade is what I'd like to think of. All right, thank you for the
And
super
that's
chat.
why.
Huh?
I'll stay with this real quick. That's why even your CX question, that other super chat, right? Why did we recommend that he jump to the G3? The G3 is a good deal better. Well, if he was from a 55-inch CX, we might have said go for it. But because he's already at 77, you see what we're saying, guys? So it's really about what you have to what you want to go to, more so than what you want. So that's why the context is so important. Go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
Oh, just jump into the next super chat.
It's a pleasure.
YJT99 asks, guys, is the 75-inch X93L the same as the X95K 85-inch variant? No and no. So, the X95K 85-inch is uniquely using an AUO LCD panel. So last year's 75-inch X95K was a different TV. So this year's 75-inch X93L continues to be that same different TV using a slightly worse Chinese panel, I guess is the way you would describe it. So the X95K 85-inch and the X95L 85-inch use the better LCD panel. You're getting a better image quality. I would choose the X95K 85 over the 75-inch X93L all day long. And since they both lack XR Clear, get with a larger size and have a better image quality. And a better price too, even possibly. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So confusing to keep up with all that. Hey, Richard Pereira. Debating for 65-inch TV. What's better, QM8 or U8K? So, Brian, we have an ongoing discussion about this. For me, I think the QM8 gives you better contrast, better HDR impact, but very raw around the edges. Color, temperature is all over the place. It may be accurate, it may not be accurate out of the box depending on the panel you get. And the motion, you either like it or you don't. The U8K, you have a few more settings to fine-tune it to your taste, but even when you fine-tune it to its best, I feel the QM8 has slightly better contrast, and I think gaming on the QM8 is slightly better. So for most people, either one is fine. They're both great deals. I would choose the QM8 for my parents because it's so easy to use, but if you like settings, you like tweaking, the U8K. Brian, you've had both, or you've seen both. What do you think?
I like how you're like for my parents.
I use my parents as a
Like
straw man.
for mom and dad. I like the QM8 a lot simply because the QM8 to me is the evolution of what Samsung was gonna be. Right? They crushed the blacks a little bit. It's much brighter than the U8K. It's more contrasty. However, you can't disable that contrasty. It just kind of is what it is. The U8K does have a bit more flexibility. So I would say if you want a more elegant experience, as elegant as you're going to get at this value, the U8K is something. If you want something a bit more accurate, U8K. If you like something that's bright, vibrant, but the processing is a little screwy, then the QM8. So if you want the brighter, more vibrant TV, QM8 easily would be my choice.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Now, we were talking about this whole MLA thing, right? Satoshi, I wonder if he owns any Bitcoins. Would you get the LG G3 77 or 83 due to MLA? But I do like the size. So it goes back to Satoshi. What TV are you coming from? If you're coming from an OLED that isn't super bright, right? Any of the earlier OLEDs, basically. Going to the 83 is just a natural progression to a larger size. Now, you don't know what you're missing, so you don't know that you're missing MLA. But if you definitely need that brightness, like, you know what, I just cannot stand the ABL or the dimming or whatever, then the 77-inch G3 directly addresses that issue. But if that was never an issue for you, I'd say go big and enjoy it. Don't worry about MLA.
Same. I mean, again, if you need the size, then yes. Again, the 77-inch can't get larger for you. But if you're coming from a large TV already, there's no reason to go for the G3. But and also FOMO and I have no indication that we're going to have MLA next year at 83. That's the hard part of these recommendations for FOMO and I is that we've heard nothing from Samsung or LG that 83 is anywhere near it's not even on their radar from what we understand. Quantum dot OLEDs or Samsung displays is what FOMO investing in smaller monitors. So their implementation is down in the smaller sizes. And MLA, I've heard nothing
Yeah.
about 83. So it's just really hard to say wait till next year because we've had no indication it's going to happen.
And Martin Shaw's comment is exactly what we're talking about. I'm glad we're able to brighten his day with this insight. Y'all just sold me on the A80L. I was set on the 77-inch S90C or the G3 or the A95L. All we use it for is streaming, coming from an old 65-inch 1080p. So the XR Clear sounds nice, and I don't need the A95L. Is it $2,000 better than the A80L? No, it isn't. This is it. Get the A80L. Thank you, Martin. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Well,
You don't have
Martin,
to overpay.
yeah, and I think Martin's approach is exactly what we talk about in these chats. Why we do these live streams, why they're so long, is that we may be answering somebody else's question, but Martin sat back and he learned, wow, I was going to go for this. But the A80L is the sleeper TV of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. And I want to catch John Mason because I remember you had a super chat earlier and you're back and now we get to finally answer your question. Sorry for the delay, my friend. I want to upgrade from my 11-year-old 60-inch Panasonic Plasma. Do I go same size OLED or 75-inch LCD for the same price? I go with the same size OLED or a 65-inch OLED, right? So I'd say,
Yep.
I mean, you've had plasma, I have plasma. I think the LCD larger, but he's going to be used to certain things that are shared with plasma and OLED that LCD doesn't do as well. What do you think?
So here's the best part about John's question is the GT30 is pretty old. The problem is your 60-inch GT30, because of the size of the bezel, is actually larger than a 65-inch OLED. So that 65-inch size, while it'll be all screen, it's going to feel smaller to you because the bezel on that GT30 is huge. I would say jump to 75 because I think you'll appreciate the immersion. If you wanted to go to a 77-inch, but I just don't think the 65 is going to feel big enough to you, John, just because the bezel on that Panasonic, I had the S series and the bezel was massive. So you're going to find that the OLEDs at 65 are bezel-less nearly. They're too small. You're going to see a smaller TV. So you're actually going to be upset with us because you're actually going to be going down in size. While it's all screen FOMO, the perception of size is still the body. And you're going to be going down. And they're low profile, where the ZT and the GT were large profile. They were high. Your TV is going to be smaller, and you're not going to be happy with it. So you're going to have to, from my opinion, you're going to have to go up in size.
Yeah, I see that too. And
Just if it was a newer TV, I'd say yes, but it's an older TV.
and thank you for the super chat, Brian Berry. I'm quite disturbed. You know what I thought? I looked at his picture. I thought there were two fishes hanging from his armpits. And I think he's holding it like this. But I thought he was doing this.
He's like, what? Got some strong armpit hair, Brian.
Like, what's happening there? And I think he's holding it like this now that I look closely. You guys are so crazy. I love it.
What's up, Brian? How are you?
Bought the S90C, but doesn't have the clarity I expected. Should I upgrade to the G3, or is the difference worth the price? Okay, so if it doesn't have the clarity you expected, upgrade to either the A80L or the if you go to the A80L, you can get slightly larger because then it has the XR Clear, which will deliver the clarity. But if you like the luminance punch of QD-OLED, then you have the A95L. The G3, because it doesn't have the same processing as the XR Clear on the A80L or the X95L, I'd skip the G3 and try the Sony's first because that sharpness really is obvious to me.
Yeah, so Brian, I'd be surprised to know, did you jump up in size to the S90C? Is it, maybe you had a big jump in size, which is why it's not that clear. I find a TV to be pretty clear, but maybe you jumped up in size too large. And yeah, FOMO's recommendations with that would be better. I don't know if the G3 would give you more clarity, right?
Yeah.
It would give you a bit brighter whites FOMO, but it wouldn't give you anything in terms of clarity.
Right. And tell us what content you're watching as well, Brian.
Yeah.
Getty, follow up.
Gee,
Do
man,
you
whatever
think-
money you were saving, bro, you're spending tonight.
Do you think the Hisense will bring another batch of 100-inch to the States being sold out? Oh, absolutely.
Did you back out,
Absolutely.
Getty? Did you jump out, baby? He backed out of it.
Yeah,
Getty,
wait.
you backed out of it.
What about next year? Is there going to be a
Go look
U9?
if it's back up there. He backed out of it.
Yeah, let's see if it's available.
If it's available, G-Man, I'll be very upset if there's one back in there.
Yeah, we know it's you.
He's got cold feet. There it is. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, it's so great. Now, yes, for sure, Hisense will bring another batch. So this is where CES 2024 is going to be so exciting. Brian and I will be there. Hisense will be like just so happy to see us because they're going to introduce all the new TVs for 2024. And I guarantee you there will be a bigger collection of 100-inch TVs from Hisense.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Can't wait to
how
see it.
good will they be? Who knows? But there will definitely be some U8, U9, UX, and we'll see how good they are, right? I can't wait to see them next year, but absolutely. I mean, the 100-inch is where we're going. People like you, G, man, you guys are hitting it with your, yep, he didn't return it.
I mean, so FOMO, think about this. The Vizio P series in 2016 at 75 inches was $4,000, and that was considered a bargain. You just bought a 100-inch superior TV for $5,000. I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
Absolutely. And James, thank you for the super chat. Continuing the debate. $18.99 for a 77-inch S90C. Oh, you got it for $18.99? Wow, it's dropping in price in front of my eyes because last I checked it was $19.99 versus $28.99 for a 77-inch A80L. Okay, Brian, $1,000 for the XR Clear. Would you pay that? I mean, we know it's better, and he's only streaming. So, you know, YouTube TV, YouTube, Netflix, whatever. Is it worth $1,000 to you?
It just, I mean, damn, James, where did you get, what is the price? Is that the price? Did you do the AARP/AAA?
Yeah, all of that. He's retired. He's a teacher.
He's like, I'm a veteran. I'm retired. I'm at
AAA.
James, it's such a hard call because I love QD-OLED. The question for you is QD-OLED something that's going to show up in streaming, which it will at times. It's very hard to spend that much money on a WRGB OLED over QD OLED. FOMO, right? I mean, that's really hard to spend that much more. There's an argument at the same price. It's just hard to spend more money on a WRGB OLED than a QD OLED.
It is. Okay, to me, XR Clear is worth maybe a few hundred, like A80L over the C3, a few $100.
Yes,
but $1,000, man. Oh, because the
over
brightness
QD OLED, and it's a QD OLED though. You know, that's a hard call. James, that would be different if you were. I mean, throughout this conversation, we've gone with the A80L typically because of size. So I would still go S. That's a lot of money, man. Get yourself you're going to need a sound bar with the S90C, so you might as well put it towards that.
All right, so now we're talking 2024 TVs already. We haven't even finished wrapping up 2023 TVs. Any rumor, thank you for the super chat, pushing polygons, any rumor on 2024 TVs? I got the C10 77-inch. I want to eyeball my next upgrade. MLA or QD would be sticking point at 83-inch or larger. So the rumors are MLA will be more universally applied, meaning the C series should get some form of MLA. Whether the 83-inch will get MLA, I cannot confirm yet, but I think they should. They might not. They might. Okay, so if LG Display has limited resources, if they were to do one or the other, they would do MLA to the C series before they do MLA to the 83-inch size. Now, we'd like them to do both, but if they don't do both, I'd like to see it on the C series. Now, if the 83-inch does get MLA, then it would put them ahead of QD OLED because there is no 83-inch QD OLED, right? And we don't expect it next year. So that's how LG can take a step in front of QD OLED, with 83-inch being the new big size that people are looking at. LG may do that, but it depends how much it is. Brian, what do you think? 83-inch MLA to put them ahead of QD OLED? Because there's no QD OLED in 83-inch next year that we've heard.
Well, pushing polygons, if I had any indication that there would be an 83-inch MLA or QD OLED, I wouldn't buy this year, and I'm buying. I already ordered my TV, so I would wait if I had any indication. And we know people from these companies, and they have not even given us a hint that it's on their spectrum, simply because the margins of TVs is low anyway, right, FOMO?
Yeah.
And the 83-inch size is such a small part of their business; it's just not worth them pursuing. So I just don't. I mean, you and I think there's a lot of people buying 83 inches. There's not. It's
No.
not. It's the 77 is the new big boy size, but 65-inch is still the main big TV. I can't see them going with it. It just there's not enough people buying them. It's not worth it for them. And you talk about a whole entire new production lineup for that FOMO, mother glass, the whole nine. It's not just as simple as, hey, let's make them bigger. But to go C series with MLA is much easier than it would be to go do that with these other series. And the guys, there's not even the Z3 doesn't have MLA at 88, so I can't see them adding it to the C series. I'm not sorry, 83. If they did, here's the thing, FOMO. If they did, you and I think they dominate. But the fact is, there's not enough 83 inches sold to really help them financially.
And you
So
can't
I would say
dominate if it's too expensive. I mean, you dominate 83-inch buyers,
Yeah.
but there's not enough of those, right?
And QD OLEDs, we know they're not headed for that. It's just not something they're interested in right now.
Yeah. Joseph Terry has a great question for gamers. I had a 65-inch LG C1 for gaming. My 4-year-old broke it thinking he is Mario. I've seen that. I'm looking for a new OLED TV for gaming in the $2,500 range. What do you recommend? So at Best Buy, this is it. $2,500, 77-inch. This is your gaming TV. Now, if you have AAA membership, teacher, you're one of the special ERP members at Samsung's website, they'll sell this for $19.99, including an extended warranty, right? So definitely my choice for all around, including gaming, is the 77-inch S90C, and your budget easily accomplishes that. What do you think, Brian? What are your other options that you might want to consider for gaming?
I mean, same. I have a C1. I love it. I have it at 83, but you're looking to go somewhere else. And for some people, the C1 is not bright enough. For me, it's fine. But again, like FOMO, I'm in a completely light-controlled room, so I think it's great. The S90C being a QD OLED is just hard to beat. So I would definitely go with the S90C in that, because the gaming on it's awesome. I mean, as far as the presets.
And sticking with you, Brian, well,
What's up, Adam?
what TV did you order, Brian?
I will not let you guys know that until I have it. FOMO and I are going to do a TV reveal on this channel, so don't miss that. We should do that one live.
We should.
But my journey to choosing it falls into every question that I've answered tonight.
Yeah.
Use case, where it is, and I think you guys will be really surprised with what I pick. Because I'm also in the heavyweight division, so I think you guys will be surprised.
And you're a gamer, so heavyweight division, super large, gaming, what TV is that? That's not a lot of people, but still, right?
Yep, but it falls into what we've talked about the entire time.
So Crypto Lights asks, hey, stop the FOMO.
What's up, Crypto?
100-inch Hisense U8K. The specs look really good on paper. How is this possible? So this is what we're saying. Sometimes a company just throws it out there to see if it'll stick. And it could be a loss leader. They just want to see, right? You know what? We got a couple million to spend. Let's throw a bunch of these TVs at cost, right? So let's say 5,000 is cost, or even below cost. One, it's a. I think they're teasing TCL because TCL is like, what? Because their QM8 98-inch is $9,000 or $8,000, right? This is like almost half the price. And number two, they want to see if the price was $5,000, would people buy a 100-inch TV? People other than Getty, right? I mean, is there more than one or two people? And then we'll
Getty's
see.
like, what up?
You're going to be a star.
Yeah,
next
I
year,
mean,
Getty.
what's funny, FOMO, think about this. During M-Wave, we had the Jennifer. What's up, my friend? We had this 96-inch QM8 at M-Wave, and it did not look good in the most accurate filmmaker preset. But I do think that these 100-inch TVs, not Samsung's and Sony because they're so expensive, but I think at the Hisense and Hisense alone, the price is so good. It's just very, very hard to deny. Jennifer Gala, what's up, my dear? How are you?
Yeah, people are wondering. Oh
Much.
no, Brian, you're building the suspense here.
Yeah. Well, I tell you right now, if you guys that watch my channel, I always give Jen this love because I think she's amazing. Go to her channel, Jennifer Gala or HCR Super Channel, if you want to see how good your TV can look. Um, Most everything that I have on my channel is her channel as far as her content. Amazing, amazing content. So check out Jen. Jen, I hope all's well, my dear. But yeah, my TV choice is going to surprise a lot of you guys.
And speaking of choices, Sea Monkey's question: 65, 75-inch TV would be worth it. Which one would be worth around 1,500 for a living room with some sunlight exposure? Movies, TV shows, maybe games. No TV in living room, 10 feet away. So maybe a 75. Well, what do you think? That's his price range, 14 to 15. I mean, the Sony X90L 75-inch would be in that range, right? I mean, for 65-inch, I think the A75L is definitely a good selection. But let's see, Sony X90L
I think
75.
the X90L is a grand at 65. It might be more expensive at 75. You might
Oh,
have to go into the U8K.
close, 1,600. Maybe Black Friday that will
75.
drop to 15. That could be close. That could be
What
it.
is it at 60? It's 1,065, right, Foma?
11,
The X90?
1,200 at 65.
1,200. Okay.
I'd
Oh,
say
okay.
hold off for the 75-inch to drop to 1,500. I think you can get there.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're pretty far away for that size, but I got you.
yeah.
Wow,
Did Phobos...
326 in the chat.
All right, guys.
Wow.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you. Hey, did Fomo say what TV he wants to buy? Well, now we're into 2024. I have all the TV I want for 2023. So, yeah, I don't know what I want to get for 2024 yet, but I'm not buying any more for 2023. I'm done. I got the S95C, the X90L, the QM8, and the G3 and the A95L. I think I'm set for 2023 TVs. Not
Yeah.
going to make room for 2024.
Well, his parents are surrounded by TVs. They're all tan. They're like, no more TVs. The whole wall's TVs. That's their wallpaper.
All
I
right.
still think. I
I
still
know.
think your 8K bezel-less flagship for your parents was the
Oh,
best story ever.
it is, isn't it? They're-
Bezel-less, top of the line. They're like, this thing sounds like crap, and it
I
uses all
know.
this energy. I don't like it. I feel
I
like it's
know.
the
They're
best
like,
TV in the world.
they went from a Crystal series to a QN900B, and they're like, we're so disappointed in this TV. We want our Crystal series
It's
back.
and that TV's glass. It's all bezel-less, beautiful.
There you
FOMO
go.
plugs in
One
and
connect
proud. Like, here
box,
you guys
right?
go. 8K.
Oh, I can't hear anything. Right? They're turning up the volume. Why does the volume suck? What am I supposed to say? This is the top of the line TV?
They're like measuring the energy. This thing's taking up all of our power.
All right, because it's 8K, right? They're like, why is the Echo things? They go in Best Buy, they look up the Eco. So they're like,
Yellow sticker on the side.
so they told me I got ripped
Oh,
off, right? They're like, look, you got ripped
yeah.
off. You paid extra. You're spending
Uh,
more energy. The audio is terrible. What does it even mean, 8K? They're like, what does 8K even mean? There's nothing I could do to convince them it was a good TV. So now they're just, whatever. They're humoring me by keeping the TV.
I like
All
how these
right,
guys are
so
guessing my TV now.
I don't know. It's great. Okay, how much more do I have you for, Brian? A few more minutes?
I'm good to go, baby. I'm not afraid. You know me.
Oh,
This
look
is
at
nothing.
you. And
You guys want to
thank
hang out? Let's
you,
hang out.
David Kretzinger, for that super sticker. Thank you, my friend. You're awesome. Okay. Before we go, let's talk about our favorite TVs of 2023. Um, how about we break it up into favorite budget TV and then TV I would buy with my own money, meaning for your own use, right? So, Brian, what is your favorite budget TV of 2023?
I think Hisense killed it this year. I think they came in with the 6, the 7, and the 8, all mini LED. So probably budget, the U7K would be my favorite, followed by the TCL Q7
Mm-hmm.
is where I'd probably go. I just think that they just made it to where there's nothing that can compete at that price point. I mean, you can go with a larger one. And as far as the high end, I mean, the A95L to me is the cream of the crop. It's excellent. So that would be my best high end. And because LG did not release a 8K TV this year, normally the Z series is my favorite TV. I just can't go with them. It doesn't exist here. So right now the A95L would be my high end pick. And then for value, I just think Hisense really cleaned it up this year.
I think that's solid. That's solid. I saw all of those TVs as well. I thought for the value it was great. For me, I'm having a hard time reconciling how good the Sony X90L is. So
Love that TV.
I know you guys are saying that's not a budget TV, but I have to say Sony X90L, it is a lot better than its price. I think it's a better TV overall than the X93L, even though that's a more expensive TV. I really like the X90L, and mostly because the XR Clear demonstrates what you could do with good engineering. And I appreciate good engineering. I mean, as much as I love it when TCL and Hisense, they brute force their way into performance with more dimming zones and this and that. And it's not cheap, by the way. I mean, these are TVs with good, high-performing parts. Sony doesn't have the same access to those parts for less. So they have to do with what they have, which is lesser parts, but then they have their software team. And to me, that's impressive, right? It's like taking what modest resources you have and using software and image processing to make it better than it is. And it is. It is. Just when I put it next to the QM8 and U8K, the fact that the X90L could keep up and was better on streaming content when it comes to like YouTube TV, I was like, wow, okay. This is good. This is what the Sony I expected from 3 years ago. The X900H, I was hoping was this, and now it is with the X90L. And my top TV would have to be obviously the A95L with its XR Clear. That, when seeing at the shootout with the G3 and the S95C, they all looked alike until you put in YouTube content or Apple TV content. That's when the Sony just took that jump. Yeah. And for me, normally I don't see that jump, by the way. But this is not something that you can adjust. Like with motion, I could find a way to make the Samsung, the LG look close to the Sony. But with XR Clear, there's nothing you can do. There is no setting on those TVs that can give it better upscaling of that content in a sharpness that was natural. So on a QD-OLED, when you combine quantum dot OLED with the XR Clear, finally the software and the hardware, it's a good match. And so for me, that's amazing. Yeah. And I love that it comes in each size.
What I love about FOMO, though, like I can't lie as my friend, but as somebody that I trust, if you ever say the guy's a shill for any of these companies, he's different every year. I mean, the U8H was your favorite for the longest time. And then he's like, well, TCL pulled ahead this year. And give you a lot of credit, too, because this year you having a whole Sony pick, you know, for both sides of the spectrum versus companies. I think you've pioneered Hisense and TCL to some degree. I give you a lot of credit because that just shows that you're judging each year by itself, which we all do. But I think if you ever get spammed with that shill for any product, it's unbelievable. And LG is typically somewhere in there for us, not this year. So pretty interesting.
Oh, you know, and honorable mention, $5,000, 100-inch Hisense U8K. That's got to be an honorable mention, even though neither of us has.
And then you go in there and turn around exactly what I said. Real quick for the sponsor of this video.
I just thought it was such a good price, right? Oh, and that's another thing.
You're like, oh, actually
if only.
I'm on U8K.
Hey,
you're like high-end U8K, low-end U8K, and 100-inch U8K.
Thank you for being so patient, David. He has his question waiting with the super chat. Coming from an old 55-inch LCD, exactly the kind of upgrader we love. Primarily antenna TV and some prime streaming. No gaming. Looking for a 75, 77-inch, 2000, S90C or Sony for upscaling. Oh, man, I was thinking Sony in my head. But the 77-inch puts the A95L out of reach. But 2000, you really only have the S90C. So I'll tell you this. Yes, the A80L does have that great for streaming upscale that we talked about. But unless the Sony's within $200 or $300, it's so hard for me to get you to pay that premium. If you have access to the S90C for $19.99, get it. It is that good. If it was within $200 of the Sony, I get the Sony. But if it's like right now, I think the 77-inch A80L is like 2,800. I mean, it's not $800 better. As much as I love the XR Clear, yeah, 2,900. It's not. Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, that's hard. So.
It's not happening.
It came out, and actually the A80L did come out later in the year too. That's probably Sony's biggest problem this year was the A80J came out. I remember it was so cheap. Everyone's like, oh my God. This time, the way they released their TVs really kind of caused a problem with their pricing. They can't lose money. That's the problem.
Yeah. Here's something we haven't had. A question about audio, best surround system. My budget is $500. What's the best surround sound system you recommend? So I don't know about surround, but $500 will get you an okay soundbar with a subwoofer. Let's wait until Black Friday, mostly because these prices, soundbars drop the most. And for example, Samsung's flagship Q990C dropped to $800. I know your budget's $500, but $800, that was true surround. You had surround speakers, you had a subwoofer. So if you can increase it to $700 or $800, wait for the Samsung Q990C to drop to $800 again. Now, that's on their website, right? You have to be the AAA member or one of the various members to access that price, but that is easily the best surround sound system per dollar. I mean, it's amazing. $800. So keep that in mind. But yeah, it's too early now. I think we'll see a lot better deals for sound bars over the next few weeks. All right.
I love how was it 2 Sooth 12. I saw the A80L in store. It's not worth the price. But your reasoning for that is you saw it in the store and it was way too blue. It's in standard. It's in retail mode. So I would say
it's
that
not using a stream either. It's using a special disc or whatever.
Watch
it stream it. Watch how it cleans up streaming. Yeah.
I mean, to say that it's too blue when it's going to be in store mode, they're always blue in standard preset or in retail mode. They're blue because they're in a room that's very bright. That's why they make them blue.
Here's a great question. Which is best for ice hockey? If it's an OLED, it's the LG G3. So if you have the budget, LG G3, 55, 65, 77-inch. Those three have MLA, perfect for hockey. Otherwise, it's an LCD TV. Any LCD TV will be fine. But if you're in the OLED, you have to look at the G3 with the MLA. All
Most
right.
definitely.
Thoughts on the B3 77-inch at $1999? Overpriced. So we talked about this earlier. For that similar price, you have the S90C if you are a AAA member or one of the various members that have access to Samsung's special deals. $1999 for the S90C blows away the B3 and the C3. But if this is your hard budget and you don't have access to Samsung's special deals, I'd wait to see if the Sony or the S90C, even the C3 can drop to $1999 because this is a bit expensive for the B3 in my opinion. I don't think it's worth $1999. So the B3 is fine. It's the price that kills me. What are your thoughts on that price?
Well, the thing too, FOMO, with the B3 is sometimes, this is terrible that it happens, sometimes the C3 and the B3 are the same price. We've seen where they drop one but don't necessarily drop the other. So I would wait for the C series to drop. FOMO, what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think about, we always talk about maybe buying last year's TV. But one thing we've seen from the manufacturers, they're carrying much less inventory. So does your advice change now? Because do you think people should buy last year's faster because the inventory is less? Because they know they're carrying less inventory.
Yeah,
do you feel like they should make a quicker purchase because those sizes aren't around? Like the C2 is gone. Those TVs are gone now.
So I use Prime Day as, if you're looking at last year's TV, you have until Prime Day to get it. It normally disappears by Prime Day or a week before Prime Day, the most popular sizes. So if you want a 2023 TV, Sony normally lasts a little bit longer because it's so expensive. But if it's an LG or a Samsung 85-inch premium TVs are gone by the end of spring. Like those things disappear before June.
Yep.
So depending on the model, next year is a great time to get it, but the Samsungs disappear the fastest. They're large
But
premium
you've
like the
noticed,
QN.
but
Yeah.
you've noticed that where we used to be able to recommend
Yeah.
a TV, like we recommended X95J from a couple of years ago. Now we can't do that anymore. It's actually gone the
It's
following year
gone.
pretty
Yeah.
quickly. So they're not
Yeah.
making as many. And like we saw with the Q95C limited release, X95 limited release.
Yep.
So UX limited release.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this right now. The S90C is such limited release. Someone told me that Costco is not getting reorders. If you
Ooh.
are at a Costco and it's in stock, get it.
Grab it.
Because they're
I'm
not
gonna go
going
to
to
that
get...
store next week and do a video.
Yeah. So yeah. So if you're getting it from Costco and you want the 5-year warranty, get it now, because they're saying it's flying off the shelves and they're not getting any reorders of the S90C 77-inch or any S90C, or well, specifically the 77-inch. That's it. Whatever they have, they're done at Costco. Now, does this mean that other retailers are having the same limited inventory? I don't know, but just something to think about, that if you're waffling on the S90C because you think it might drop an extra 100, buying at Best Buy gives you price protection through the return period, and getting it at the Samsung price, the .com membership price of $19.99, that's a no-brainer. Get it? Because there may not be anything until the S90D, and then you're done, right?
Yeah.
Here's a great super chat from Quack Fu. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yep.
So I have a 77-inch A80J. Maybe that was the last time we saw him. He got the A80J.
Dude, the funny thing is, Quack Fu. The funny thing is, how many people are in the stream right now? We remember last time we saw you. We're like a dentist. So it's been a minute since you had your teeth.
Well,
the way you said that was so passive aggressive. What's up, Quack Fu? Long time no see, bro.
We remember you. Problem is, it lives in a bright room and it doesn't get bright enough. Recommendation. Mm-hmm. Well, the G3 definitely gets bright. The A95L gets bright, and the S90C. My recommendation: get the S90C. If that's not bright enough, then you go to the G3. Now, if you're used to Sony, the A80L is not that much brighter than the A80J. You would have to go with the A95L, which is a lot more expensive. So A95L is top of my list, right? But that's like almost $5,000. Next up would be the S90C, because you're benefiting from all the quantum dot OLED magic. And the S90C and the G3 actually in sports is slightly brighter than the A95L. So if sports watching is the issue in a bright room, you might actually go with the G3. I think the G3 is the brightest OLED, bar none, at the 77-inch size, and it has the least dimming issues of the three models, S90C. But second to the G3 would be the S90C or the S95C, and then A95L. It dims the most when you put it on its brightest mode, vivid or standard. So hopefully that helps you, Quack Fu. Let us know, and we'll talk to you in 2 years.
FOMO.
You're awesome.
Long time no see, bro. I have the 80J 77-inch in a bright room. For me, it's not that it's not bright enough, Quack Fu. It's the fact that the black area of the screen becomes a mirror in a bright room. I would say go with a larger LED if you're going to be bright room all the time. I think you'd be very happy with an 85-inch QM95C, QM8, because in a bright room, if you're watching a lot of sports, that's where the LEDs live. It's larger, very bright. I don't think you're going to find another OLED that's going to be able to stand up in a very bright room because of the reflection handling of them. See you next year. Thanks for coming. Tip your waitresses.
And Quack Fu did get the S95B, so now that means you're used to QD-OLED. The S90C is slightly brighter.
How's that one in a bright room?
Yeah, G3. Get the G3 then. That's brighter than the S95B for sure. So here's someone that wants us to know. The veteran discount, the S90C is not for the veteran discount. So AAA members, but not the veterans. But they did offer them 10% off. So that's, $200, not bad. That gets you closer. Not quite $19.99. And Dan
I love the name. Robo Grunt is a great name, by the way. Thank you for your service if you have service. That's a great name. Robo Grunt, and thank you for your service, my friend. But that name is, I'm stealing that tonight.
Robo
Might
Grunt.
change channel name. Who's this guy RoboGunt you're hanging out with? Change his name and channel.
Rating says the X80L doesn't use EXW OLED. I assume you mean the A80L. I honestly don't know, Dan Becker. I I don't keep track with the whole LG EX thing anymore, mostly because almost every improvement to me has been to efficiency ever since that whole Evo EX thing. Not a big deal to me. As long as this, so as an example, the A80L, I assume you refer to, the A80L versus the C3, the A80L still looks, the specular highlights, everything. At worst, it's the same, but it's not dimmer. Now, on the measurements, they're all over the place, both TVs, right? But real content, I like the A80L. So whether it's EX or not EX, I don't think it's an issue anymore. It's not like second generation QD-OLED. It's twice as durable and all these different things, right? And you could see it being really slightly brighter. The EX, the Evo, all that stuff with that panel, at this point, I think LG is mature. It's where it's at. So unless they're promising more durability, don't sweat the EX thing.
No, we saw that very much with the Evo panel when it first came out. Remember, I think it was the CX. Some were Evo, some weren't Evo. They were nearly indistinguishable from one another. It's just another buzzword. You may see also that they're on different sizes because the 880 had different performance, different reflection handling. If you remember, it was matte at 55. So I really don't know, but I don't think it makes any difference.
Yeah. One of the VE calibrators mentioned that G3 gets quite hot. Is this the same with the S90C and the A95L? I don't notice it getting hot. I've played it. I've put my hands behind it. Now, the G3, I think, has a heat sink as well, so maybe the heat sink is doing its job. I've never had an issue with them getting hot. I mean, I think they all get kind of warm, so, but not an issue.
Like it's doing, almost like it's doing its job. It's blowing the heat at me. It's got vents on the side. I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah. And this is the hardest question. FOMO, price prediction, A95L, 65-inch Black Friday. You'll be lucky to get $200
Exactly.
off. You'll be lucky.
They were guys. I'd say right now, Sony is not going to. They are not going to take a loss on that TV. It's already priced cheaper than I think they wanted to. If we're being honest, it came out way too late in the year. They are not going to drop it. It's also a Master Series, so I can't see it dropping. If you want it, grab it.
And is $540 a great price for 48-inch A2, which is the OLED 60 hertz panel? Thinking of upgrading from a 2010 42-inch. Yeah, no, it's an OLED TV for $550. Go for it. You'll like it. It's definitely an upgrade from a 42-inch LCD. Better in every way.
Especially in LG. Plus in LG, I think those are IPS too. I'm pretty certain those LG monitors at that size.
Yeah. And as far as 77-inch C2s for $979, honestly, I've never seen that. Once it's sold out, I saw it, but I never saw it. Actually, you could add it to a cart at $1,000. So anyone who bought a 77-inch C2 at $1,000, awesome, but I have never seen it in the real world, other than after it's sold out. All right.
I got like a Batman vibe going on with my camera right now.
Oh,
I'm
wow,
like
look at that. And Matt's saying he's confirming the G3 does get hotter than the S95C. So yeah, I haven't measured it. I cannot say. But if room temperature is important to you, maybe the G3 may increase that room temperature by, a few degrees.
Yes. So if you're in a cold environment, G3 is a heater. There you go.
Great question. FOMO, will they ever make OLEDs in 85-inch instead of 83? Probably not, because these OLEDs are being cut for other things, monitors as well. So everything has been set up in the mother glass so they can fit in the most number of different sizes, right? You got 83, you got maybe 32-inch monitors, maybe 27-inch monitors. If they were to go to 85, it may be an odd number of monitors that they can deal with. So they might, but they would have to it's like Tetris, right? In this giant mother glass, what can you fit? What kind of TVs can you do? So it's unlikely. They've already optimized that size. But you never know.
So, I gotta share this. I gotta share this story. So we were at the shootout, and Chirag from Samsung Displays You'll see him on the channel soon. He's been on FOMO's channel. Awesome guy. FOMO walks up to him, and what did you predict? 83-inch. So FOMO went up to him with some algebra. Yeah. He goes, Chirac. He goes, because of the mother glass, and he gave him some arithmetic. Chirac looks at him, and all FOMO was doing is seeing if Chirac would give him like a little indication that he was right. And Chirac goes, where did you get that information? He goes, nowhere. I just pulled it out of thin air. And Chirac, for a second, I thought we almost got him. And Chirac's like, where'd you get that from? He goes, oh, nowhere. I just did the math. So it was so funny because for a minute we were both looking at Chirac to see if he was like, did you hear that from us?
Is he going to blink? Is he going to blink?
What did you say? You were like,
what I said was, Chirac, so I'm convinced you're going to have an 83-inch QD-OLED next year. He goes, why do you say that? Well, look, you're going to have the 27-inch QD-OLED monitor. And if you do the math, you need if you can do a 27, it comes from an 83, right? So unless you have an 83, you can't have a 27. Tell me I'm right. He's like, who told you this? I'm like, no one. I just made that up.
Yeah, but you didn't. But the way you said it wasn't, I'm convinced. You made it sound like you heard it. And then he's like, where did you get that from? I'm like, oh, I just did it now. He's like, oh, thank God.
Now, it doesn't mean that we're off base, but he's just like, he was very concerned that he was the last to know.
You're like behind him with a calculator. So the square root, yeah, see, it works.
Michael Walker, thank you for the super chat. What is your opinion on the AWOL 3500 Pro 150? So, first of all, I don't have an opinion. I don't have the AWOL. I do have the Hisense PX2 Pro. That's their 2023, their latest ultra short throw laser projector. I think that's their almost flagship. I think their flagship is the L9H, and it comes with a screen or something like that. But the AWOL 3500 Pro, I don't have that. I have no opinion other than this. I love ultra short throw laser projectors generally, but their tone mapping leaves a lot to be desired. That doesn't mean the AWOL's tone mapping isn't good this year, but tone mapping on a laser is not easy. They normally clip it, and it's skin tones. HDR, I mean, it's better just to watch SDR on these ultra short throws. However, the PX2 Pro is Dolby Vision, which means they'll do a great job tone mapping to the projector's ability. Doesn't mean it'll be brighter, but at least I won't get clipping on the Dolby Vision with the PX2 Pro. So if the AWOL has Dolby Vision, then you're okay. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to really get in there and tune it to match the tone mapping. That's generally speaking. If you only watch SDR, it shouldn't be a problem. But I do love the UST in that we can get 120-inch sizes if it goes that high. But yeah, how big are you making this AWOL, Michael? Like 120-inch? I think that's about as large as the USTs go. But Brian.
Oh, this one. Well, I think Brandon just did a video on it. The AWOL. It's a 150-inch screen.
150, right? Okay.
150. So 120-inch is big, but when you add that 150, if you have the room, Michael, I think they're great, but it has to be light controlled. And now you have to be in a completely dark. The minute the light hits that, it will disappear. So it goes back into. You have to have a massive home theater to fit 150. I mean, massive. And you better be good at putting the screen together, which I am not. So.
And I love this comment, Matt. And you're correct, Matt. I was going to suggest that, but I just realized most people don't buy a $5,000 UST to match it to a $15,000 Mad VR or a $8,000 Lumagen. But you're correct. Yeah. Those external processors, that will work well.
Oh, dude, they're awesome. Well, you know what's cool about that, though, when you see, like Matt, when we were at N-Wave and we saw all the processing that goes into the Mad VR, was it Mad Gear VR? It's like specifically tone mapping, and they're going into like every file. That would make me crazy. I'd be so busy tweaking every movie, I wouldn't watch anything.
Yeah. That's the problem. Nando's comment. My wife's boyfriend says the A95L is the way to go.
Oh, I just pulled a rib.
Wait,
I just pulled a rib.
Nando's like...
Hold on. I got to stretch for a second. Hold on.
Nando's like, Honey, what should I get? Well, my boyfriend says we should get the A95L. Oh, all right. You guys are crazy. All right, Josh. Thank you for the super chat. FOMO, I bit the bullet on the 77-inch S90C for $19.99. Congrats, you got the great price with the free 2-year extended warranty. Do you think I'll regret it going from the X900F with mainly watching streaming? No. Like I said, the difference between XR Clear and not having it, unless they're side by side, you're not going to say, oh my gosh, that's unwatchable. When you have it side by side, then you go, oh, okay, I could see this one is slightly sharper, right? I could see that the S90C is slightly softer, but the improvement from the X900F to the S90C in terms of contrast and just everything is so, like, huge. You're not going to regret it, believe me. So, and it's only $19.99. No, enjoy it, Josh. Don't look back. Don't listen to anybody. Now, do I think the A80L will come down to $2,000? Not this year. Maybe a flash sale next year for Prime Day? Yes, but not this year. It's popular enough where they don't have to do that. Did you pull a hammy, Brian?
I literally... Did we figure out what that my wife's boyfriend? Oh my god! Like I broke my rib laughing. It's never happened on camera before. Oh my god, my wife's boyfriend. Did we figure out what was behind that message? Oh, FOMO's face. He's like, what? Oh my god! I can't believe I pulled like a back muscle. Go ahead.
And AWOL has Dolby Vision. There you go, then, Michael. With now the question is, AWOL has Dolby Vision, but Justin brings up a good point. Nobody seems to have proper working Dolby Vision implementation. Less the Sony the high end with external secondary SoC image processing. Yeah, so that's another thing. We assume the Dolby Vision is okay. Like the Hisense U8K Dolby Vision this year was not good when I had it. So the Dolby Vision implementation also has to be hopefully good. And then if not, you hope a firmware update will make it good. So yes, that's a very good point. And then we have a super chat. Thank you, Brad, guitar man in Texas. Hey, Brad, what kind of guitar you have? I have to share. I have a Gibson Les Paul chambered classic that is just under 7 pounds. Finally found one. Just under 7 pounds. Les Paul. See, I call it Les Paul because, it's just the French. I see Les Paul. But yes, I had to get that. But, maybe he's not a Les Paul man. Maybe he's a Fender man. I have a 65-inch LG RG9600. Looking to upgrade. Watch 11 feet away and watch all streaming content and dish. A recommendation. I recommend you get a Sony. Maybe the X90L. So for sure the X90L is going to be an improvement over this older LG. So X90L 85-inch would look phenomenal if you could fit it. So 75 or 85-inch X90L, Brad. Let me know what is your budget. I think that may also determine what we suggest as well. And Michael wants to follow up the AWOL self-rising 150-inch screen. Yes, that's awesome. Oh, wow. That actually is compelling. I like that. It's like your Vivid Storm, right? It's self-rising from the ground.
Yeah, but I think the AWOL is the whole credenza, though, right? That's not just the body. That means I think the AWOL.
Wow.
Yeah, so the AWOL I think flips out, Michael, and then it's got the soundbar. Is that what you're talking about?
Wow,
I think that's where AWOL is much better. Vivid Storm is just the piece, but that thing must be massive. So that's cool. 3-hour live stream is nothing for us.
Is it only 3 hours? We'll be done soon. I mean, we might not do another Black Friday live stream, so we just want to get this out. Hit your questions. Minaj Syed, 85-inch X95K or X95L. X95K is on clearance for $3,000. So it goes back to the question: is XR Clear worth $1,200? Because it's currently the X95L is $4,200 if you can find it. I say no. Get the X95K for $3,000 or the QM8 for $2,000. So the question is the X95K worth $1,000 more than the QM8 at 85 inches for a little over $2,000, which is what I expect Samsung to be at by the end of the year? I don't think even $3,000 to me is expensive, but the X95K $3,000 is fine. X95L is not
Yeah.
$1,200 better.
No, they're close, and they're close enough too. The X95K and
Yeah.
L are actually quite close, other than the XR. So I would say you're right. Grab the X95K.
Brian, what game are you playing on the PS5 right now?
Spider-Man 2,
Oh, the
I
new
think is
one.
the game that I'm playing. Yeah, and I'm just playing that to have demo material. I barely use the consoles. I'm on PC right now playing Alan Wake 2.
Ah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah.
Good question. Tech question. Do you foresee fiber optics replacing LEDs for dimming zones? The difference would easily add tens of thousands of dimming zones, potentially. Definitely not. The technology stack is not there because it's not just about the actual dimming elements themselves. You need the transistors, the ICs. I mean, you need the entire control system, and the control system is already in place for mini LED. They'd have to kind of apply it to fiber optic. Now, that's assuming the fiber optics can get brighter than current LEDs. It's an interesting question, but without seeing any sign of any development in fiber optic leading to this end result, I don't see it. Uh, I see where we are with mini LEDs. They've hit a cost effectiveness that it doesn't make sense for them to go back and then invest another several hundred million to try something new. Especially,
Yeah.
for example, the Apple professional monitor that's $5,000 or whatever. It's a mini LED. When done right, it's good enough for an Apple monitor. So for fiber optic to get to that point, how much is that going to cost? What's the size of the market? I just don't see it. I don't.
Well, and I mean, to our point, FOMO, is that the more dimming zones we've gotten out of it, it's not going to matter. You still have to control them. So the more dimming zones, because they're not shutting all the way off, it's it actually becomes more complicated and less efficient. So I think you're going to see them stop going for the number of zones, especially see what Sony's doing. So we saw that with the Sharp and the UX, 5,000 zones, 2,000 zones. Unless it's OLED black, you have to be OLED at that point. So it really defeats the purpose.
This guy's old school. So Brad Guitar Man has the follow up. Get this. He currently has an OLED, an old LG OLED. Wow, EG9600. Budget is
Okay.
2,500. I'd say Sony A80L. Oh, I'm sorry, 77 inch. The 77-inch
LGEG.
A80L. Just make sure I got the right size because
Yeah.
he's watching Dish, streaming content. I mean, this is definitely the Sony's strong point, right? Right here, I have right there
Yep.
A80L. Now I know it's 28.99. I see it coming down to 2,500 for Black Friday. That is conceivable. If it doesn't, then go with the Samsung 77-inch S90C because it's also that good. It didn't have the XR Clear, but this is your budget. The S90C, definitely an improvement over your LG, even without
Yeah.
the XR Clear, for sure.
Yep. I think why we like Sony too, other FOMO, is that Sony's become the set it and forget it brand. Pick the preset you like and just leave it alone. Don't touch it. And that's why I think it's so good for
Yeah.
everything we're talking about.
Well, speaking of Sony, there's no flagship next year, right? I don't know. Did Rob give you any hints as to there's a flagship next year?
No, I mean that's the one question he couldn't answer, Getty. But I think FOMO and I both predicted that it would probably be irresponsible to release another. I'll say
QD-OLED?
this: if they decide to release another flagship next year, it would be they would get out of the TV yearly thing. They would then say, you know what, we'll release that a month before CES, thus creating next year's TV. I think, and FOMO
2025?
and I think
Yeah.
both. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
FOMO and I both agree. The A95L's interface is what you're going to see next year. It's essentially a 2024 TV.
Now,
And in the past,
good.
but
No, I was going to say,
but in the
arguably,
past,
I
in
was
the
saying,
past,
go ahead.
Master Series have been 2 years. A9G, Z9K. They've had every 2 year things. A90J in a way. So I think you might see that again next year.
Now, it doesn't mean that they won't release an MLA A85L or A80M or whatever, right? They could still release a
Yeah.
MLA WOLED. Won't be their flagship, but it'll be an improvement. So to the degree they might do that, that's still on the table. And
And I don't see why they would do that because they're not going to have that at 83 inches. I don't think they want
right.
to then have a XR Clear. But XR Clear and MLA would be deadly.
Yeah.
But then it would max out at 77, thus creating another problem.
And here we have a super chat from Roderick, but waiting for his questions. So we'll add you as soon as we find you. Okay, here we go. Alex, thank you for the super chat. I'm updating a Sony LED as my only TV. Deciding between the 77-inch A95L or the 75-inch X95L. I guess you're outside the US. Room is dim but has windows as daytime reflections, leaning towards the X95L to combat dimming. Thoughts? I go with the 77-inch A95L. It's not as dim as you think because you're coming from a Sony LED anyway.
Yeah.
I go with the 77 A95L. If it's in your budget, go with that. I think you'll be okay because it does have very good anti-reflection, in my opinion. But what do you think? You're saving money.
Same thing.
But
the only way the X95L beats the A95L is at 85, and that's just size-wise. Yeah. At the same size, they can't compete. I probably have another couple minutes, FOMO.
All right, perfect. Let's catch Kyle's super chat.
I'm getting a call for dinner now. I'm like, now people want to have me back family-wise.
Perfect. Then we'll catch this last super chat. Thank you, Kyle, for being so patient. I did miss it. I apologize. Will Z9K get discount? Does it work with Bluetooth? 2 questions. Z9K is getting close to its lowest price it'll ever get, right, Brian? You think it'll go further?
Yeah. No.
Nope.
Doesn't need to. It doesn't need to because they didn't release the Z. If there was a Z9L here, yes. But right now, they know that people are looking at that TV, just like the A90J. They don't need to drop it anymore. They'll just sell out of their inventory, and that will be it. If they work with Bluetooth, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I think I missed this one as well. Thank you, Max Omega, for being patient. I missed yours too. Okay, coming from a 77-inch C1, but considering upgrading to a 77-inch S90C for $2,000. Mixed usage with gaming. Is it worth upgrading to QD-OLED? No, if your C1 is still working. Yes, you will see it be brighter. Games will be punchier. But if you are happy with your C1, the longer you hold off until it breaks, the better your upgrade.
Yeah. I echo the same thing, Max. Simply the C1 was very good. And as I think FOMO has stated this many times, under 1,000 nits, things will look identical. Right, FOMO? We kind of always said that they may look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Certain content, you'll see the difference with a quantum dot. But for the most part, we just have a hard time recommending. If that was a 77-inch C9 or a TV 3 or 4 years old, maybe. But it's hard to recommend same size as being an upgrade. I think you would be disappointed that it wouldn't be different enough.
Yeah. And wow, we still have 275 people. Thank you for hanging out. We're going to end it after this comment, Don. I didn't address the Bluetooth half of the question. It's Bluetooth accessible, but to the degree that there's what you do with the Bluetooth. I don't know what you want to do with the Bluetooth on the Z9K, but it does. Your phone will recognize a TV.
Yes.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think just headphones. That's it. I think the new TVs have a lot more functionality with Bluetooth and hand gestures and things like that. But I don't know if the Z9K it does have Bluetooth headphone. I guess if that's something you need, it does have that.
So before we go, Brian, I want to address this question because this is address it because there's so much hype around it, right? And the question is, what is it exactly? So let's type in this feature here. Let's see. I want to pull it up properly.
First of all, your profile picture looks very professor-like, so I'm afraid to answer this comment. He's an engineer in Harvard.
I know he's waiting for us to get it wrong, right?
And it looks like he's typing in the picture. Are you typing in the picture?
Okay, so first, XR Clear still became talked about, although it's not that new. So image processing is not that new. XR Clear, per se, that term is new. Specifically, Sony has improved its upscaling and processing. And the improvement, the jump was so visible that they gave it a name. So correct, XR has been around for a few years now, and it has given Sony that edge in processing, but the differences were minor enough that I would not choose a Sony over a similar LG or a Samsung because it was just a little bit better. The XR Clear this year specifically addresses issues of streaming content, where the streaming content is either low bit rate or low resolution or whatnot. The way it's able to sharpen, and we're not talking over sharpening, it looks natural. So 720p, 1080p looks more like 4K than ever before. And there's also some contrast enhancement as well. So it's not just resolution. There's some contrast enhancement happening, and it makes everything look slightly, I don't want to call it three-dimensional because it's not three-dimensional, but it pops a little bit more and you really see it. And you don't have to have the TV side by side. You actually notice it. Now, is it $1,000 better? No, but it definitely makes you pause. If it's a few $100s more, that's the Sony tax that makes it worthwhile. So now, it's not that impressive. So safe, great point. If you're looking at Blu-ray, like Kaleidoscape, Blu-ray, high quality content, let's say Bravia Core, right? You have an X90J with A90J with Bravia Core, and then you have the A80L or X95L. What you'll notice is, oh, the quantum dot makes a bigger difference. XR Clear doesn't do it. Watch streaming content on regular YouTube TV, YouTube, Netflix, Prime. Suddenly you'll be like, oh, now I see what you're talking about. So it's use case specific, and Sony's addressing this new crowd of people streaming more than Blu-ray. Blu-ray to Blu-ray, yeah, not a big deal.
Well, and also why you're hearing it being talked about now more than anything is that it was on the A80L that no one saw. Very few people reviewed it other than me and a few others. With the A95L, it's really brought to the forefront, Saif. And then obviously with their lineup, the X90L being a entry-level TV, their mid-range, that was kind of pushed to the side. The X95 being only 85 inches, that's why it's not been discussed. It's not a widely used feature because they don't have that many models that you're familiar with. But I will tell you, the way Rob Brennan described it to me is that it's basically AI learning. They've thrown content at it for the last couple of years, so it learns what to see, and then it adds a layer of processing on it. So it's not over sharpening, but it is AI learning. That's the way it was described to me, more so than just the funny name on it. And it is a big difference. You have to see it and really be around it. Being in store, and I love this because I've done Best Buy reviews forever in store, right, FOMO? Yeah. It's great to give you an idea of how things look, but things like processing can only be seen using the footage and spending time with it. And I'll tell you, it's a big difference.
Yeah, if you went to Best Buy, they would look alike. But if you brought your Apple TV or your streamer and you split it, then you'll see the difference. And that's the problem. The stores give it the same high quality 4K HDR feed that's designed to make all TVs look good. And so now there's very different. But if you give it low quality content, XR Clear rises to the top. So
well, and XR Clear also, it's not just low quality. I know we discussed this as being very low bit rate, very low quality. Think 1080p, but also think low quality 4K grain structure. It does help with everything that's thrown at it. You just might not notice it because something like Avatar is already so clean, but even something that has a tough, that's not great in 4K, it definitely will clean that up as well. It's not just old school MASH or, Dukes of Hazzard. It does clean it up quite a bit. Oh, look, just the good old boys.
Dukes of Hazzard.
It's...
And speaking good old boys, John Mason, thank you for that super chat. And this will be the last super chat, guys, and then we'll end it for the day. But this is an important question because a lot of you are replacing your old TVs. Are all modern LCD TVs going to be better than my old 65-inch plasma? Notice he didn't say OLED. LCD, and so we're talking the best LCD TVs like the Sony X95L or arguably the Samsung QM8 or QM90C. Better than my plasma. Any thoughts on the minimum I need to beat the old TV? I'd say the minimum OLED. I don't know why you didn't mention OLED, but LCD TVs it's not going to compare to self-emissive in terms of contrast. You might notice that. And you'll notice that motion on your plasma will appear a little bit better, even on the LCD TV. So if there's a reason you don't want to go OLED, let us know. But I would rather you go to OLED to plasma because they're self-emissive technologies, right? Then your OLED will have HDR. Your plasma cannot do HDR. It wasn't designed for HDR. It was designed for SDR, which is 100 nits, right? It maxes out 100 nits. And if that's all you watch, like what Brian loves to watch, Columbo and MASH, you're good to go. with
Brian, that son of a gun.
with like an LG A2, right? The LG A2, the image quality will be similar, but someone mentioned motion, and so now you have the Sony motion, so maybe a A75L. So I would say the Sony A75L, 65-inch, but maybe you want impact, then you'd have to go to the 77-inch A80L. But I cannot get you into an LCD TV and say that technically the LCD TV is going to be better than plasma. I don't know if you'll feel that way. Brian, what are your thoughts? And then we'll let you go and we're done.
So the problem I have, John, if you're going to go from an OLED, or I'm sorry, plasma to an LED, is that you'll be seeing blooming for the very first time. And you're going to see a lower contrast ratio for the very first time. So that's probably where I would struggle. Motion handling, I mean, plasmas natively have better motion. They're not 600 hertz, that they've said on the sticker. But you'll notice black bars being purple or gray unless you go with a very high-end LED. If you're going to go with a very high-end LED, we always recommend you go from plasma to OLED. We almost never recommend plasma to LED. So you'll see blooming and you'll see a lower contrast ratio natively, and you'll see gray black bars, and I think you're going to struggle with it. I think you're going to think, what the hell am I looking at? So I would almost never recommend an LED for you. Unless you go high-end LED, at that point, I'd rather you go with an S90C QD-OLED because it'll cost as much as a high-end LED. So I would say go with an OLED.
Yeah. But then, oh, I see. Big OLED is big money. So let's give you that follow-up. Big OLED is big money. Okay, gotcha. So if you want a big TV, then get yourself that QM8 on the Samsung side, Sony X90L, and I think the size will make up for the differences in contrast. So the Sony X90L for 85-inch or 75-inch, I think stick with
QM8. QM8 might be a good one for Omo because he likes the black level. So
oh yeah, true. The QM8 looks very similar to an OLED in some scenes, or the U8K. But let us know what you get, John, and remember to get a return policy in case you don't like it. Swap it. All right,
Swap
guys.
it, baby.
With that in mind, hey, thank you for hanging out with us for over 3 hours. I didn't even know. Time flew. It's like 3 hours and 21 minutes. You guys are all so awesome. We might be back, and then next time you'll find out what TV Brian gets. Until next time, my friends, stop the FOMO.